carry on standing up, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
You as well. Everyone. Everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Please be seated. Good afternoon. Can I remind members that these proceedings are being recorded? They will be available on the council website on Thursday. Can we take the notice convening the meeting as read?
Read.
The next item in the minutes of the last ordinary meeting of the council held on the 24th of January 2018. Can we agree with the minutes?
Could I move the apologies for that meeting and did provide notice in writing and has provided the city services of
Anything else, please? Councillor Gibson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On page 6 of the previous minutes, Madam Mayor, I am recorded as not voting on that first vote. I was in the chamber and I did press the button to vote.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Anything else before I move on? Members have been asked to display their declarations of interest on the board at the entrance of the chamber. Members are reminded that dispensation has been granted to all these members who have applied for them in order to deal with matters relating to the council tax. Do any members have any further declarations? There are no announcements on this occasion. Apologies. Do you have any apologies for absence?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have apologies from councillors A. Allen, Curran, English, Howe, Ledbetter, Porthouse, Stewart, Tye, Waller, Waters, D. Wilson and N. Wright.
Any more? Apologies?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor George Howe and Councillor Shirley.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Billy Turner and Councillor Mary Turner. I emailed the chief.
Thank you. Councillor Snowden?
Councillor Linton.
Thank you. Councillor Hurren?
Was my name level there?
No.
For apologies? No? I'm only getting
Thank you. The next item is the report on the election of the leader of the council. Their terms of office to be until the annual meeting on May 2018. I now call upon Councillor Spedding to move the nomination.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I so move Councillor Henry Troom as the leader of this council. Thank you.
Who seconds the motion?
I second the motion, Madam Mayor.
I understand that Councillor Hodgson wishes to move an amendment and ask him to move his amendment.
No, that's all right, Mayor. Just let me make a comment on the report.
Does anybody else wish to make a comment before we move on? So I now call upon the leader to provide the council of the appointment of, sorry. Councillor Hodgson, do you want to make a comment now or afterwards?
I'm happy to speak after the report's been moved.
Councillor Spedding's already moved it.
Thanks. Yes, thank you, Mr. President. It's good to see that the Labour Group is responding to pressure from the Liberal Democrats. And agreeing that the Council's rudderless status city. I've been on this council for nearly 2 years now, and in that short time I've seen failing after failing, senior officers resigning, services falling short, budgets overrunning, councillors suspended, damning reports from regulators and outside bodies, a lack of transparency and an endemic failure to get the basics right. This is a council leadership incapable of getting to grips with the problems it's facing, and the options presenting us with here with this report is more of the same, frankly. It's all the more difficult to go along with this recommendation, given that we know that there is discord, bullying and factions in the Labour group, and given that the Labour group cannot even trust each other, I don't see why we should trust their choice of leader. And indeed, I would suggest, Mayor, that my good friend and colleague Stephen O'Brien might be...
Councillor Spenning, would you like to
Well, yes, I would agree. I'm so rubbish. But there you go. That's what we get from the minority party in opposition, if you want. But at the end of the day, I have clear confidence in the leader of the cabinet and in this council. I also have full, if you want, confidence in my fellow Labour councillors on this council to do the right thing going forward. I do not listen and repeat myself on occasions like what Councillor Hodgson does. There is no need to do it. The proof of the pudding is in the eating that this council delivers an excellent situation for this city. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. So can we agree to the election of Councillor Henry Truman as leader of the council? Do you want to record a vote? Show of hands. I think we should take a recorded vote. So that is recorded. Okay?
Wipe off the board, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, the report is 4 abstentions and 3 votes against, and therefore motion is carried.
The coalition still exists.
They're on your side. Thank you. Can we move on, please? I now call upon the ladies to advise the council of the appointment of the deputy leader and of any changes in respect of the membership of the cabinet, portfolio responsibilities and deputy cabinet members. Leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thought I was in the house of fun there. The jokes are fantastic. Madam Mayor, Councillor Moore will be designated as the deputy leader of the council until the annual meeting in May 2018, and he will also keep the responsibility for both the city services. Other than that, Madam Mayor, the membership of the cabinet, the portfolio responsibilities are to remain unchanged.
Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and council note the latest decision on executive appointment.
Agreed.
The next item is a report on appointments to committees and outside bodies. There is a supplementary report tabled which sets out the nominations which we have received since the original report was circulated. Leader, would you like to please move the report?
I move the report, Madam Mayor.
Cabinet Secretary, do you wish to second the report?
I so second, Madam Mayor.
Leader, do you wish to speak on the report?
The report is fully settled, Madam Mayor. Just to mention the Gen 2 situation, this is in line with the local government appointments, and this is the regulation of the social housing, and we will try all this up at our AGM. The other one is in view of the pending resignation of Councillor Tom Wright from the Fire Authority. We have elected Colin English, Councillor Colin English, to the Fire Authority until the end of the term with our AGM. Thank you.
Cabinet Secretary, you wish to speak on the report?
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. The leader has sent a report. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the report agreed?
Agreed.
Councillor Hodgson?
I'd like to comment on the report, if I may, President.
Stanley?
I just actually want to comment on a small part of the report, namely item 2.5, Gen 2. Given the recent turmoil at Gen 2 and the fact that the social housing regulator has condemned the lack of scrutiny and oversight in Gen 2's government arrangements, I would suggest to the Cabinet, really, and to the Chief Executive who's taking this report forward, that all 3 current councillors are removed from the board of Gen 2. That the changes were made as a matter of urgency rather than delayed until May, and that there is opposition representation on the board of Gen 2 here forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Lee, did you wish to reply to this comment?
Not really, Madam Mayor, other than to say that this is a private company and the interference of our opposition in that business would not be welcomed by them. Our responsibility is to put our members onto that board and carry out their duties, which I believe that they have done with due diligence, with honesty and with integrity.
So is the report agreed?
Agreed.
It's agreed.
I now call upon the leader to move the approval and adoption of the report for the Cabinet.
I shall move, Madam Mayor.
Who seconds the report?
I second the report, Madam Mayor.
Leader, if you would like to speak to the Cabinet report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, just before I start, I think it's worthy of me and sure the rest of my colleagues will agree to pay thanks to all of our staff who continue to work through the recent bad weather. Not just the lads and lasses who were out there with the shovels and the graders, but also to the backroom staff and everyone who contributed to making our roads safer, our paths safer, and certainly helping the residents where it was necessary with any problems out there that you were having. I would just like to take this opportunity Madam Mayor, I'd like to formally move the revenue and capital budget for next year.
Thank you. Before... Leader, is anything else you need to speak on, or can we move on?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, if you would allow me. As been the case, Madam Mayor, in recent years, there is some very positive news in respect of the investment that we are making in our city. However, once again, there are some very difficult decisions to be made in order to deliver a balanced budget. A balanced budget by law that we have to deliver. Madam Mayor, it is now 8 years since this government began imposing austerity measures on local councils.
Can I stop you just there a minute? I think we've got some disturbance.
I do apologise, Your Worship.
Can you leave the gallery? You can't speak up there, please.
I can't speak.
You can't speak. Can you leave the gallery?
What happened to freedom to speak?
Can you leave, please? Otherwise, I'm going to get security to ask you to leave.
Right, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I'm not allowed to speak yet. I'm a person from Sunderland. I'm a Sunderland citizen. Alright, you'll be hearing more from us.
Sorry, would you like to proceed?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, it is now 8 years since the government began imposing austerity measures on local councils, bringing cuts to funding, which in turn have resulted in cuts to much needed local services. The Chancellor's budget statement last November offered no hope of any additional funding for councils to help support the pressures in both children and adult social care. This was despite analysis published by the Local Government Association indicating that local government faces a 5.8 billion funding gap by 2020. Not that far away, Madam Mayor. Government have once again left it to the very end of the budget planning process, and we got to know on the 6th of February that they will provide a small amount of additional funding. While the additional the adult social care grant for next year is welcomed, in reality it gives us less than 1 million extra to help meet the cost and demand pressures we are now facing. And of course, it is funding which is only available for next year, so it doesn't really represent an ongoing sustainable solution to the social care funding gap. And then of course, Madam Mayor, on the opposite side of the coin, and I think our great colleague's coin is double-headed, on the opposite side of the coin, Madam Mayor, the government is cutting our revenue support grant by almost 9 million next year. That's a 19% cut, Madam Mayor, and this isn't a one-off cut in our funding. That amount of money will be taken off us each and every year going forward. The social care precept was introduced 2 years ago to allow councils to raise money locally and to offset some of the cuts in the government funding. But really, it really just shifts the burden from central government to the council taxpayer. However, it also disadvantages councils such as ours with a low council-based tax. Put simply, we cannot raise as much through council tax as councils in more affluent areas. The government is currently reviewing the way local government is funded and a plan to move to a system of 75% retained business rates by 2020 alongside a fair funding allocation. Austerity has hit high-speed, high-need areas like Sunderland particularly hard. It is essential that the outcome of the fair funding review recognises the needs of this city. But for now, Madam Mayor, we must focus on setting a balanced budget for next year. Since 2020, we have worked hard to protect residents and communities from the impact of the cuts, with more than 290 million already saved or already cut. We couldn't save because we didn't get it in the first place. And this is since austerity measures have begun. We now need to find a further 27 million of reductions next year, and there's a potential of 53 million needing to be saved by 2020. This means our ability to deliver even statutory functions is being severely tested, which brings with it very difficult decisions. The Council continues to work with partners and communities to make the best use of all resources as available. Our approach involves redesigning services so that required outcomes are delivered at least cost. Available resources have been prioritised to support statutory requirements and key priorities. In addition to remodelling services and cutting costs, the Council also needs to focus on moving towards self-sustainability. We therefore need to ensure we continue to invest in Sunderland's infrastructure and focus on developing the city's economy. If we are to create more and better jobs and make the city more attractive to residents, this is the route we have to go down. Madam Mayor, despite the ferocious cuts in the revenue budget from the government, the Council does have an ambitious and fully funded capital programme. And I need to be very clear that this money can only be used to support investment in the city. It cannot be used to support the day-to-day running of the services. I only wish it could. I am pleased to say we have proposed a capital programme of more than £147 million next year, with a further £134 million invested, and that is planned to be spent in the following 3 years. This demonstrates our ambition and commitment to make our city more prosperous, self-sufficient despite the cuts from government. However, Madam Mayor, 2018-19, the budget has once again involved very difficult choices in order to deliver the reductions of the scale required. It is a testament to the relentless work of portfolio holders, of members, directors and staff that we've been able to do this. And it never ceases to amaze me how our staff manage that. The City Council has done its best to protect residents from the impact of cuts since 2010. For next year, the Council will continue to address the cuts by maximising back office savings and utilising corporate resources in order to minimise further impact on frontline services wherever possible. And remember, in 2010, Madam Mayor, there was a coalition government where our members' party there started what we are now suffering now. However, Madam Mayor, the compact of government cuts and significant cost pressures means, sadly, increasingly difficult decisions do have to be made. And I've repeated that purposely to remind our colleagues of some of the decisions that they are sitting now considering, particularly in the Cabinet. Raising council tax is one of those very difficult decisions. The harsh fact is that if we don't raise council tax now, we will need to cut services by even more, with the impact to the most vulnerable members of our community. It is with an extremely heavy heart that we therefore have taken the decision to raise council tax in order to protect the services from further cuts next year. Madam Mayor, the proposal is to raise council tax by a total of 5% within the government-set referendum limit. This includes a social care preset implemented by the government to help fund adult social care pressures. Move it out of the government, give it to the local authorities, take it off the people, let them pay for their own care. As the proposed increase is below the government's limit, a referendum will not be required. It represents an increase of £1.24 a week for the average Band A property and 83 pence a week for the Band A property. Madam Mayor, although this rise is not what we want, our council tax remains the lowest in the region, reflecting our continued drive to do all we can to deliver high quality services which provide strong value for money for our residents. My Cabinet colleagues will soon briefly present their own individual portfolios, and by way of setting the context in headline terms, I'd like to highlight some key areas which form the cornerstone of our plans for 2018-19 and into the medium term. Medium term, Madam Mayor, we don't know what's going to happen after 2020. In terms of people, we will ensure that we continue to protect the most vulnerable citizens within our communities through both children and adult service provision. This commitment is reinforced by the inclusion...
Madam Mayor, I move the extension so the leader can finish his budget speech first.
Agreed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll start that sentence again. In terms of people, Madam Mayor, we will ensure that we continue to protect the most vulnerable citizens within our communities through both children's and adult service provision. This commitment is reinforced by the inclusion of more than 13 million additional funding to support cost and demand pressures in additional to the capital investment that is already being made. Moving on to personal economy, the proposal set out today demonstrates the importance we place on the feedback that we receive from our residents. This proposed budget provides for some reinvestment in services which residents tell us are a priority, including street scene and making the city greener and cleaner. Residents in my ward tell me that they would like that investment even though they have no one that is in need of any social care. So we are doing that, Madam Mayor, and like yourselves, I want to live in a cleaner and greener city, but I also want to be mindful of that we have people who do rely on our services, and they're the ones that are more important to me than cooking the grass. In addition, as I said earlier, we're investing 147 million in the city's infrastructure next year. with a further 134 million planned to be spent in the following 3 years. And as a council, Madam Mayor, we are working with the private sector to encourage and facilitate development and investment. The council and all our partners continue to invest in the regeneration of the city, with some major developments planned over the next few years. Madam Mayor, work is progressing on the International Advanced Manufacturing Park, which is next in Nissan, the joint venture with South Tyneside. That is aimed at creating over 5,000 quality jobs, Madam Mayor. Northern Spire clearly demonstrates our aspirations for the city. It is progressing at pace and on target for completion in the not too distant future. Phase 3 of the strategic transport corridor will improve roads running from the new way crossing to St Mary's Way, opening up opportunities for development on the south side of the river. If anyone wants to visit down there to see what land has been opened up down there, it is absolutely tremendous for the future development and the infrastructure of our city. Furthermore, investment in roads and school infrastructure will support the development of 4,000 new jobs in the Sunderland growth area. Madam Mayor, recent events in Northamptonshire demonstrate how important financial resilience is when managing the council's finances. And if you read the news and kept up with the news, that is a Tory-run council. Yeah. It was delivered, it was being voted on it, a 114 order. It was 21 million overspent, even though they just recently moved into a new building costing 53 million. The address is 100 square. Just a reminder, Madam Mayor, they can't even look after their own, so they ain't going to look after you. If you're dependent on the service, don't count on the opposition and the Tories. We do need to be prudent in the use of our reserves, Madam Mayor. Just before I carry on now, just add a little bit in. I'm pleased to say that the proposal before you today helps support our continued financial resilience. While for the next year we have released services to help support the budget pressures, and the reserves have again been set at a prudent and appropriate level for 2018-19. But we do need to be prudent, Madam Mayor, in our use of reserves. We have to recognise the vast majority of reserves are held with detailed plans and projects in mind, such as investing in the capital programme. We must also recognise that we cannot use reserves to top up the revenue budget on an ongoing basis. Given the austerity measures from the government are ongoing and our forecast to continue, we must strive to deliver ongoing and sustainable solutions. Madam Mayor, I'd like to conclude by saying that the proposals presented today are as robust and as fair as we're able to make them with the very difficult financial context that we face. I therefore, Madam Mayor, commend to the Council both the revenue budget and the capital programme, which continues to underpin our commitment to deliver value for money and to the best services possible for the people of Sunderland. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Lyndon. Before dealing with any amendments, the individual portfolios will be introduced by the portfolio holders. So, the Cabinet Secretary, Ms. Biden.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Obviously, it's the annual meeting. I mean, obviously, in respect of people coming to the public gallery, but it must remind people that this is a meeting in public, not a public meeting. And if anybody wants to take issues, they can take them up with their councillors in their wards at the right time and the right place. Madam Mayor, as Cabinet Secretary, I support the budget proposals presented by the Leader of the Council. We are once again in a very difficult position as a result of the continued austerity measures imposed by the government. Once again, we are left with no option other than to make some very, very difficult decisions as we are legally required to set a balanced budget. I would like to thank Cabinet colleagues, members and officers who have worked hard to identify as balanced a package of proposals as we are able, given the very difficult financial situation with which we are faced. Madam Mayor, the revenue and capital proposals have been thoroughly tested and also consulted on to ensure we target our available funding on the key priorities for the city and demonstrating the importance we place on what our residents are telling us. The proposals include some reinvestment in services which are clearly a priority for communities. These budget proposals therefore include reinvestment in street scene services and in making the city greener and cleaner. In terms of my oversight of the people theme, I wanted to highlight a number of aspects prior to my cabinet colleagues commenting on their roles in more detail. Regarding children's services, Councillor Farthing will outline how pressures in safeguarding our children and young people continue, and how additional investment will help ensure the continuation of the improvement journey in this vital area. As the Leader has stated, financial pressures in adult social care continue apace, and Councillor Miller will set out how we are investing additional resources to help support this priority area. A decision fully made by this side of the chamber in an action that we represent the people of this city. With regard to public health, wellness and culture services, Councillor Kelly will outline how we are working to maximise the cultural offer available to the city within the confines of our ever-reducing resources. Madam Mayor, the capital programme proposals within the people theme reflect continued support for projects which help deliver against higher priority needs, resulting in an investment of more than 12 million in 2018-19. In respect of my corporate portfolio, 2018-19 will see us continue to provide corporate leadership on our budget and medium-term financial strategy, again, widely consulted upon. Ensuring the Council retains its financial resilience in 2018 and 19 and beyond is fundamental to our approach to handling the significant financial challenge we face. Financial resilience within our local authority finances is becoming increasingly important, given the tightening of the funding position. We will continue to apply financial prudence whilst being innovative and creative, and we will ensure that our medium-term financial strategy, which again was widely consulted upon, remains robust. As the Leader pointed out, instances up and down the country with councils facing serious difficulties in their financial situation. However, the annual audit letter from our independent external auditor once again commented on how well the Council has responded to the financial pressures faced. It comments that we have a proven track record of delivering on savings plans, although recognising that the level of savings required is challenging. Audit Commission obviously used the term savings as opposed to the proper word, which is cuts. The letter also positively comments on the arrangements we have in place to deploy available resources to achieve planned and sustainable outcomes for taxpayers and local people. Whilst we are obviously pleased to be able to report on these positive aspects, there is no escaping the fact that the financial outlook remains extremely challenging, particularly with the government proposals to move to 75% business-based retention by 2020, and a system of self-sustainability. The risk that this poses to the future of services in this city and our city cannot be overstated. We need this government to ensure a fair and equitable funding system which appropriately recognises need and the ability to raise income locally. Worryingly, there is still a significant lack of detail on government proposals, despite them planning to implement the changes in just 2 years' time. The proposals sent out today reflect that we have tried to limit the impact of the cuts on frontline services by again maximising non-frontline savings. While we are drawing on one-off resources to support the budget next year, this has to be done in a prudent and measured way, as the Leader said before. Ultimately, we have to provide long-term solutions to ongoing cuts in funding. Madam Mayor, we take no pleasure at all in proposing to raise the council tax. However, if we don't, we will need to make more service cuts. Thankfully, Madam Mayor, the capital programme continues to provide investment in our infrastructure, with further investment in the port to support the city's economic development and regeneration, which will help with our future self-sufficiency, because clearly it's about jobs and wealth and well-being of this city. With this in mind, Madam Mayor, I believe the revenue budget and capital programme represent the most balanced and appropriate way forward possible, given the very difficult financial position with which we are faced, and I therefore fully support these proposals. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barton. Children's Services, Councillor Barton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Last year I was privileged to attend the annual conference of directors of adults and children's services. And it's a tradition at that conference that the Minister for Children attends. Now, last year we had a new minister, as Edward Timpson had been defeated in the general election. Now, Edward Timpson, despite the fact he was a Tory, did have some understanding and sympathy for children's services. The new minister, and I do forget his name, but the previous year he'd been the minister that had to deal with asylum seekers, and he was also responsible for asylum-seeking children. But he got a very rough ride in the 2016 conference. Now, at the 2017 conference, as children's minister, in the closed meeting, again he got a very rough ride. In fact, he left in a great hurry because he was really cornered, and it wasn't by Labour members, it was by Tory members, because they were so concerned about the restrictions on their budgets and the fact that they were having to dismantle their early help services, which gave me a great concern, because in Sunderland we are trying desperately to build up those early help services. Now, anecdotal evidence is being supported by the annual local government finance survey carried out by the Municipal Journal and the Local Government Information Unit, revealing that children's services and education is now the greatest immediate pressure facing councils across the country. It is therefore extremely disappointing that the government did not look to address the growing funding gap in children's social care with any additional money as part of the financial settlement. Now, in my view, children's services become under pressure because of deprivation, and the constant reduction or the freeze on benefits has had an impact, and we can see it in some with the increasing numbers that come to our attention. The Local Government Association has warned of a £2 billion funding gap in children's social care by 2020 across the country. A gap of that scale will leave us struggling to provide even statutory services to vulnerable children and families in need. The government must look to address the gap to ensure the essential support for families from child protection services is there now and in years to come. In relation to my own portfolio, the children's services budgets are intended to meet the financial challenges and seek to continue to develop strong and responsive services for the children and young people of our city. As part of this budget, in the 2018, the Council will make an additional investment of more than £5 million in children's services revenue budget. In addition, there is an additional capital investment with 2 new school extensions planned and improvements to Derwent Hill. This will ensure we will continue to improve our outcomes for our children and young people. Madam Mayor, with that, I would like to commend the budget proposals for the children's services portfolio. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harding. Health, Housing and Adult Services, Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, before turning to my own budget, can we first consider the national context in relation to adult social care? The Local Government Association is forecasting that there will be a £2.3 billion national funding gap in adult social care by the end of this decade, which is not that far away. Worryingly, the resource provided by government as part of the 2018-19 local government finance settlement is woefully short of plugging that gap and is not a long-term sustainable solution to the problem. It is therefore essential that the government's joint inquiry on the long-term funding and provision of adult social care addresses these issues and feeds into the government's forthcoming green paper, which hopefully will not then be buried in the long grass over the summer. With regards to my own portfolio of the budget, the health, housing and adult services proposals arise from work undertaken over many months to develop a service offer that meets assessed need in the most cost-effective and affordable way. The proposals set out contribute to supporting an ageing population with an increasing number of adults with mental health issues or more complex learning and disability needs. These pressures, along with those experienced by our NHS partners, which have a direct impact on the cost of adult social care, require balancing with the need to continue to deliver positive outcomes for the most vulnerable people in our city. Almost £8 million of additional funding has been provided for within the revenue budget for 2018-19. This will support investment in services, help to meet the cost of additional demand and address the impact of the national living wage on the cost of services we need to buy from social care providers. Budget reductions are required to support the additional investment the Council is providing next year. These will be achieved by continuing to meet need in the most effective manner, including the implementation of a new case management system and the use of assisted technology. Madam Mayor, I am pleased to say that this Council will continue to ensure that residents receive the relevant level of care they require and that we will continue to seek to improve outcomes for those most vulnerable members of our community. It is clear that the financial position moving forward is exceptionally challenging, and the proposals put forward today represent a balanced response to current circumstances. Madam Mayor, with that, I would like to commend the budget proposals for the Health, Housing and Adult Services portfolio for the Chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Public Health, Wellness and Culture, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, before I start, can I just take an opportunity to disprove this mass hysteria that the Bradon Trust have about not working together. I have to give huge thanks to my directors because we've been through the ringer this year, and huge thanks to my cabinet colleagues who supported me throughout this at times when it's been difficult to justify sometimes investment into culture and into other areas of the city. Madam Mayor, in the medium term, we do need to keep a watchful eye on the government's fair funding review. Whatever proposals emerge from the future arrangements and resourcing public health services in the city, the government needs to ensure there is an appropriate level of funding moving forward to meet the needs of residents. In relation to next year's budget, the proposal for public health, wellness and culture arises from work undertaken over the last year in relation to the review of the cultural offer. The budget will see an unprecedented events programme delivered within the city within the next 12 months and will bring in excess of 2.5 million visitors to the city, and that creates an economic boost to the city of approximately £52 million from the 3 significant events planned. The events programme is an opportunity to strengthen our position in the North East as an event city and a superb opportunity to raise the profile of Sunderland regionally, nationally and internationally. Madam Mayor, that has already taken place because we are widely renowned by a number of the major organisations as a place to invest in and an area where they do get good outcomes from their investment. I'm pleased to say that the Council will continue to develop the broader cultural offer, working with partners, ensuring a wide range of cultural opportunities is available. The depth and breadth of the cultural offer is vast, from arts, libraries, music, through to museums and heritage, and from activity through sport to participation in spectacular events. Madam Mayor, as always, we are striving to ensure within this very challenging financial context, where, as my colleagues have already said, it's becoming increasingly difficult to deliver even statutory services, there remains a vibrant and inclusive culture and wellness offer for all ages and needs across the city. And this portfolio service plays a key role in supporting economic growth. With that, Madam Mayor, I would like to commend the budget proposal for public health, wellness and culture.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. City Services, Councillor Morning.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I endorse the comments and sentiments already expressed by my cabinet colleagues in relation to their individual budget headings. Madam Mayor, Tory cuts are hitting even harder across the country, as we have a government so wrapped with internal Brexit divisions that they cannot see that there's a crisis engulfing local government finance. As the leaders already mentioned, we've further difficulties being experienced by Northamptonshire County Council, Madam Mayor, who has effectively declared themselves bankrupt, banning all non-essential spending. They are not the only council under pressure, or indeed the only ones who have issued stark warnings to the government about the growing finance crisis facing the sector. And all the while, the Prime Minister ignores the calls of respected local government leaders from all parties, as she's too busy playing party games and checkers with her cabinet. It's an absolute disgrace that the government are turning a blind eye to the serious crisis in local government finance a crisis which is of their own making. They need to wake up, they need to act now, or it will be the most vulnerable in our society that will bear the consequences. This is a crisis that even the Conservative chairman of the Local Government Association, Lord Porter, has called on the government to address. Madam Mayor, this Labour Council have, for the last 8 years, tried our utmost best to protect as many frontline services from the worst excesses of Tory and Lib Dem cuts. In my own area, the Labour Group are well aware of the impact of Tory and Lib Dem cuts have taken on the cleanliness of our city. And the people of Sunderland are rightly angry. I would say to those people, Madam Mayor, as I did last year, and as I said the year before, Labour in Sunderland understand your anger. That I am angry as well, that frontline service budgets have been slashed in recent years as a direct consequence of Tory and Lib Dem supported austerity that has cut nearly £300 million from the budget of this city. Labour in Sunderland has listened to the residents who have demanded action to clean up the city. We took action in last year's budget, Madam Mayor, and again proposed significant investment in this year's budget and in years to come. Last year, members will recall we reinvested £500,000 back into local environmental services, particularly in the areas of environmental enforcement, doubling the number of enforcement officers working across the city. Labour introduced a new, much stricter environmental enforcement policy that has seen the team carry out nearly 6,000 investigations to date. Looking ahead, Cabinet at its meeting at the end of the month will consider a report that will increase the fine for littering to £150. And we are currently working on further proposals that will be brought forward in April that will disrupt even further the activities of fly tippers in Sunderland. Labour in Sunderland is determined that in spite of the savage cuts imposed on the city by the Tories and by the Liberal Democrats, we will improve the cleanliness of our city. We will do that by taking a zero-tolerance approach to all environmental crime and by giving frontline services the resources they need to do their job. Madam Mayor, because Labour have listened to the people of Sunderland, I am pleased to propose that within this budget an additional £1.5 million will be reinvested back into local environmental services. Investment that, although not finalised, could see over 90 new frontline local service jobs that will tackle litter on our streets, will tackle fly tipping in our back lanes and keep our open spaces fit for purpose, as well as again increasing the number of enforcement officers working in Sunderland. Madam Mayor, the final details of this investment will be announced in the coming weeks. That investment, I'm sorry to say, will be opposed today by the Conservatives, who will propose an amendment later to delete this year's investment of £1.5 million. Now, I know the official Sunderland Tory Twitter account has bragged that losing 16 councillors since 2008 is, and I quote, a small price to pay for 3 general election victories. That statement should set alarm bells ringing in the ears of every single resident in Barnes, in St Peter's, in St Chad's, in St Michael's and in Fulham. In fact, all across Sunderland who are considering voting Tory in May. They don't want you to vote locally. They don't want to represent communities in Sunderland, as long as they can claim up power nationally. And you don't have to take my word for it, you can said so themselves. If that's what Brandon Lewis's new social media army gets you, you should have to be millionaire money stolen us back. Madam Mayor, if I may, I'll probably say it more later on the amendments on move, but I just want to say something briefly about the table amendments that have been proposed by the Willyside branch of the Newcastle Liberal Democrats. It really does astonish me to see 3 City of Sunderland councillors elected by people across 3 wards in Sunderland jumping so merrily to the tune of Lib Dems from Newcastle. I can imagine the scene that Lib Dem GHQ in Newcastle, Greg Stone, who tells them 3 what to say and what to do, telling himself, relying the fake news, all the little mistruths, all the outright lies from third-party helpers has actually worked. We've won another by-election. I better jump on the metro, get through to Sunderland and give the kids the next set of instructions. So, jumps on the metro from Newcastle, heads through to Sunderland. Rumour has it the 3 kids like to meet in McDonald's, so he turns up, always buys them a Happy Meal to see about and starts to write the budget proposal followed on the back of his nice happy box meal. Because no serious political party with Sunderland, its residents and its economy at heart, could propose a second amendment that is so against the interests of the city's economy. Regardless of the few grudge amendments, fancy proposal to abolish the mayor because you're falling out about how to address the office and absolute childish politics. Like our proposal today, there are choices. I believe the Labour budget is the best choice possible in the circumstances, but to propose cancelling the investment in the Port of Sunderland is a step too far, in my opinion. Why anybody would want to commit such an act of economic self-sabotage is beyond me.
Because they're from Newcastle.
But that's the Lib-Dems playbook, written word for word by Newcastle Liberal Democrats, who instruct them to operate in a constant mode of pessimism, to foment cynicism, and to stoke anger and resentment across Sunderland, because that's how the Lib Dems win. But Labour in Sunderland are determined that this cut of politics will not win through, because even though things are very hard economically for many in our communities here, because of austerity, a conscious choice supported by every single Tory and Liberal Democratic councillor in this chamber here, Labour sees the glass as half full. We have the passion, we have the determination to continue to drive our city forward, to protect our communities from the two parties opposite who are only interested in talking Sunderland down. Labour has always been on the side of Sunderland. Labour works for Sunderland. Madam Mayor, full details of the proposals in relation to the City Services revenue budget for members to see are set out on page 229 of today's agenda. The capital programme for the City Services portfolio is a clear example of what excellent economic management by Labour looks like when you're not held back or dragged down by Tory and Lib Dem cuts. The City Services element of this is set out on page 78 to 82 of today's agenda and shows an overall total of 120 million of capital investment across the city. The major project that sits out by far is the fantastic progress of Northern Spire. I'm pleased to report to Council that it is due to open in the coming months, on time and on budget. It really does make me proud when I'm driving around the city and I catch a glimpse of the magnificent airframe, or as Councillor Diane Snowden did recently, flying above it. It truly is a landmark for Sunderland that we can all be proud of. Madam Mayor, I draw Council's attention to page 78 of today's agenda and ask that members take a minute to look at some of the smaller capital schemes that have been completed in the last 12 months. These schemes are often unreported and do a lot to improve Sunderland. Hopefully the press can report on some of these positive schemes carried out by the Council last year on behalf of the City. Also, page 80 of today's agenda details the projects that are programmed to commence in the coming year. Madam Mayor, in conclusion, I would like to thank the team of officers who have supported me as portfolio holder, particularly Les Clark and his team of heads of service, Tom Terrett, Mark Jackson, Mark Spain and Ian Callahan, and their teams for all their advice and support. I would like to congratulate Barry Scott and his team for another job well done in compiling the full budget. I would like to thank my Deputy Cabinet Member, Councillor Jamie Wilson, whose support this last year has been invaluable in taking some of the pressure off. I would like to thank my Cabinet colleagues and my Labour Group colleagues for all their help and patience during the last year. With all that being said, Madam Mayor, I commend the budget proposals for the City Services portfolio to Council for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Borden. Responsive Services and Customer Care, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, the Responsive Services and Customer Care portfolio provides leadership on area arrangements with the aim of ensuring the relevance of our service to the communities. My portfolio is also responsible for developing the community's capacity to engage in shaping delivery and review of services. To support these aims, the Council and our partners celebrated success in November last year in securing European match funding to deliver our community-led local development programme. This programme provides a 5.8 million total funding package with partners over the next 5 years, which will help stimulate the local economy to deliver jobs and growth by supporting activity that addresses local needs and opportunities. From the outset, the Sunderland approach has been to fully involve communities in developing and shaping the plans, priorities and processes underlying the bid for funding. Our bid was praised for its innovative and collaborative approach, and I know these values will continue throughout the life of the programme, ensuring its success. This programme, alongside other core budget elements for this portfolio, will help support
the delivery of positive outcomes for our residents. Over the life of the programme, more than 2,200 people will be assisted through employability, training and skills development activities. Approximately 250 unemployed participants will be supported into employment, including self-employment, on leaving the programme, and 317 potential entrepreneurs will be assisted to be enterprise ready. 155 enterprises will receive support, of which 109 will be new enterprises, all helping to increase employment opportunities and access to jobs within our communities. Therefore, Madam Mayor, I can confirm that this, alongside everything my colleagues have said today, enables me to support the budget proposal presented today.
Thank you, Councillor Gofton. Next, we will deal with the amendments to the budget proposals moved by the leader. Notice that we received the proposed amendments by all council members who have been received and have received a copy. I would remind council that the recorded vote will be taken with each amendment and then a single vote on the substantive motion. We will deal with the majority opposition group's amendments first. Councillor Oliver, will you please move the amendment to the revenue budget by reading it out?
It says on.
Sorry,
Madam, can I make my thought?
Are we on the number, please?
What is the
The
number in the Constitution.
sorry, Councillor O'Brien, you have to follow the script.
Okay.
It's Councillor Oliver's amendment. You've got your time. I haven't done this. Have you got a point of order? Which rule is being broken?
It's item 5 on the procedure. It says amendments must be set out in full in writing and fully state proposals in sufficient detail. This does not state where that £1.5 million is going in sufficient detail. This amendment should be chucked out.
He's in our time.
I've taken advice and we've had an amendment and we're overruling, so we take we're overruling point of order and we're moving on to Councillor Oliver.
Totally inaction and happiness, I can't tell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, the amendment is as follows: to amend the revenue budget by reducing the rise in council tax from 4.99% to 3%, by decreasing the revenue budget by 1.812 million, by deleting 1.5 million from street cleaning, £200,000 from the cost of trade union representatives, 136,340 from members' allowances, by increasing revenue from parking by £100,000, and then by increasing the revenue budget by £27,680 for the replacement of wheelie bins reported by the police, £86,660 to increase the highways operational budget, highways operational revenue budget, and £10,000 for plastic bottles recycling.
Councillor Pratt, do you want to second the motion?
I second the motion and reserve the right to speak.
Councillor Oliver, would you like to speak on your amendment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'll explain it as clearly and carefully as I can for the benefit of the
Small words.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Conservative councillors propose an amendment to the revenue budget, and many thanks to the Conservative councillors for their ideas and advice, and to Mr Scott and Mr Meggle for some help with it. Madam Mayor, the Conservative group is the only group that will limit the rise in council tax this year to 3% rather than the 5% being proposed by both the Liberal Democrats and the Labour group. Madam Mayor, we believe that we can afford a lower rise in council tax this year by deleting a number of the spending items that have been proposed, and therefore return money to the taxpayers of the city, of course, rather than simply shuffling around the waste, as has been proposed by the Liberal Democrats. We do, of course, seek to guarantee the rise in adult social care, 2%, and an additional 1% that we feel is essential. But we do wish to propose a deletion of £1.812 million in the revenue budget on the following. First of all, Madam Mayor, to delete 1.5 million from street cleaning. It's important to note that this is actually a deletion and a replacement, because as we had, I think, in a council meeting not too long ago, I don't know if Councillor O'Brien was there, but we did have a massive debate about it. But we had a debate about it, so it was clearly put out what that was, that we would propose to have a council company set up that other councils throughout the country have done, which of course would be cost neutral, because it would bring in revenue from fines and be able to improve the environment, but without costing the taxpayer. And it's disappointing to see that Councillor Morley and the Labour group are always the solution to every problem, of course, is spend more money on it. And they're not really embracing what other councils are doing, like, for example, Newcastle, where our three councillors come from. Which, of course, Newcastle Council, I'm actually referring to the Labour group in Newcastle Council, have been extremely efficient in bringing in revenue. They've done it, often by fines, but you know, if people want to drive down the bus lanes the wrong way, then that's their fault. But they've brought in millions of pounds through revenue, but this council has not done that much. So we would propose to keep 1.5 million in investment in street cleaning, but to do it in a cost-neutral way. That would also allow the council to win contracts from other councils, other neighbouring councils, and therefore be able to expand and bring in more revenue to the city. But the point about street cleaning really is that the big issue is fines. You can clean up the streets as often as you want. And of course, in Councillor Morley's own ward, Hendon, Villa Road is cleaned every single day, but there is still litter on it. And until you really get to grips with fining people, and that means everyone, that means school children, and I've read the Economic Scrutiny Committee on that, and the views of Labour councillors on the Economic Scrutiny Committee about fining juveniles, catch them when they go. But until you really get to grips with fines, then not enough will actually change. The second thing, Madam Mayor, is to reduce, but not to eliminate, the cost of funding trade union representative facility time. As a trade union representative myself, and a long-term trade union member, I do of course value the role of trade unions and the fact that they are legally entitled to a reasonable time off. But reasonable, Madam Mayor, is probably not £260,000 of taxpayers' money to fund these unions who just happen to be quite close to the Labour Party, and I believe some councillors may have received some funding from them as well. We have been told in the past, of course, that this was because of the switch team and because of the adjustments to the people employed at the Civic Centre. We would need all these trade union representatives to ensure that their cases were put. But really, it hasn't reduced that much. It's only reduced very, very slightly. So we're going to give that a little bit of extra encouragement and reduce it to 2 full-time equivalents, leaving £60,000 in the budget, which I'm sure is more than enough. Thirdly, Madam Mayor, we would cut members' allowances by £136,000. And we would have, if I may say, we will of course include our own allowances in that, because we couldn't possibly have a hypocritical situation in which we proposed a reduction in members' allowances, but we weren't prepared to touch ours. Or, for example, we criticised other people's allowances, and then at the first possible opportunity, we took them 100%. In brief, we would feel that the leadership positions of groups would be trimmed by 25%. We would eliminate policy assistants unless they would like to stand up and tell us what they really do. Obviously, we do support. I think we must make the point that members' allowances are very important. Why do we pay politicians? So that you allow people from different backgrounds to get into the House of Commons and to local councils. So we mustn't pander too much to the views of some people. If you didn't have payment for politicians, you'd probably end up with 600 degrees mobs in the House of Commons. One is just fine, 600 not. So it is important that their councillors are properly remunerated, but any remuneration is absolutely essential. We were not, Madam Mayor, you'll be pleased to know, we are not intending to eliminate you at present. So
that comes later.
We do feel the Mayor of the City does provide a very important ceremonial role. I know that the people of the City do appreciate the work that the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor do. They do have a certain amount of prestige and kudos in the City, and I think if we move to a chairperson or something like that, it just wouldn't have the same effect. People would just not be interested. So we do think that below the leadership posts we would reduce by 50%, but we would still allow allowances for the Mayor and for committees, but we would scale those back. Moving on, Madam Mayor, we would also expect a bigger increase in the revenue from parking. There's been a little bit of movement on that, but not really enough. And again, we're lagging miles and miles behind Newcastle. They're bringing in millions of pounds every year from parking. Even Hartlepool manages to bring in more than we do on that. So we think it's reasonable to suggest an extra £100,000 coming in on that. It is not, of course, that we're saying that we should increase parking charges. We're increasing parking revenue. So that can mean, of course, better car parks, it can mean more innovative schemes, discount schemes, etc. But we would expect an upturn in the revenue on that. Madam Mayor, the deletions there come to more than is required for a 2% reduction in the rise of council tax, and leaves over small amounts for some of our priorities. Number one, thanks to Councillor Wood for a lot of the work he's done on wheelie bins, which was to... So it's of course the pinnacle of his political career, but for the information that he's got on actually wheelie bins that are stolen and reported to the police and get a crime number, if we were to fund what happened there last year, it would come to £27,680. We feel that is reasonable given the financial constraints. If there was proof that it had been stolen from the police, then we would be prepared to fund those complaints. Secondly, we would increase the operational budget of the Highways Department, mainly for potholes. I think with the departure of the beast from the east, there will be a fair few more potholes on the roads of Sunderland coming up. And we do know that that is a priority for many residents. So we would fund that by £86,000. And finally, we would also try to encourage more recycling, in this case of plastic bottles, which we feel could help. It will help the removal of litter in the streets, and also help us reach our recycling targets. So the £10,000 there would fund 20 units at local supermarkets, banks where people could deposit plastic bottles. And that is the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arden. Does anyone wish to speak on the amendments?
Councillor O'Brien. Councillor Morley. Councillor Haswood. Councillor Miller. Councillor Francis. Councillor Howard. Councillor Ward.
Councillor Hudson, would you like to speak on the amendment, please?
Thank you, Mayor Sunderland. Like the Conservative group, I haven't anticipated another council tax rise this year, but my concern really is that people are paying more and getting less. That residents are upset at the services they've lost, but are not seeing them returned in this amendment. Rather, they're getting a small comfort from a Conservative group that appears to me to be out of ideas. The Conservative group has clearly been so desperate to find a way of reducing the council tax bill as some sort of big statement that they've just resorted to fantasy, plucking numbers out of thin air with no real plan presented in front of us of how they would raise the money. Not only that, but it's quite true that this motion came before the council back in January and it was quite roundly rejected. It's hard to see why we'd be considering this again so soon without any greater detail presented by the leader of the Conservative group. What's more though, taking a few quid off one council tax rise ignores the ongoing problem in another, the social care precept. And I think Louise Farmer and Henry Truman have both been quite right speaking earlier on today about a crisis across the country in social care, adult and children's social care, and the Conservative government that frankly is not listening. Not even listening to their own councils elsewhere in the country, instead passing the cost on to the council ratepayer and local NHS services, both of which are struggling to cope. It's a shameful mess, frankly. I think this amendment, there's a few bits of it which I see the appeal of, but it's blind to the problems that the Conservative government is causing and deaf to the demands of local residents, and for that reason I can't support it.
Thank you, Councillor Hudson. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Spain said in the newspaper yesterday that the Liberal Democrats' amendments were written on a 5 packet. What the hell is this written on? It is popular. It doesn't detail.
That's the sleeve off a packet of 5.
Yeah, it was sleeve, right. It doesn't even detailed. It doesn't even give detailed mathematical solutions to problems. It's actually they're actually proposing something what we all roundly voted against in January because it presents through economics. It is essentially Liberal Democrats cannot support this because it doesn't set out enough detail in their budget. It's ludicrous. However, I will say this: we do agree, as my colleague stated, parts of it. I am dismayed with the council tax rise, but again, it is needed. Social care and children's services do need rises in their funding because, as we all know, it is in massive pressure on this council and imperative that we get it right and that we move on from the last October reform we had. It is just absolutely farcical that we came to a budget meeting with this. I'm sorry, but we can't vote this. It's outrageous.
Excuse me. Councillor Morley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just before I start, I know Councillor Hudson was on his phone before he got to speak. I was wondering if Greg had been in touch with Madam Mayor, I just want to speak in relation to 2 items of the amendment. The first is increased revenue from parking by £100,000. That has support this amendment because, in my belief, it directly interferes with the regulations set down by the government, which states single parking enforcement is a means of achieving transport policy objectives. For good governance, enforcement authorities need to forecast revenue and expenditure in advance, but raising revenue should not be an objective of CPE, nor should authorities set targets. That's important. Nor should authorities set targets for revenue or number of penalty charge notices be issued. So on that basis, in light of big government times, I can't support that today. The other thing is the issue of 1.5 million for restricting, and it's a fundamental disagreement between the Conservative majority party opposition and the Labour group, is that We need action today. We need action today to improve the cleanliness of our street because of years of severe, savage cuts. And we cannot wait for 12, 18 months to set this company up or effectively to bear the cost of that company. We are on a journey, as I said at Council in January, we are on a journey with enforcement. It is the policy of this Labour group, this council, that we take a zero tolerance approach. We are investing in extra enforcement officers. So we are on a journey. I think this is, again, the Tories will privatise anything if they can. So on that basis, just on them 2 points, I would ask colleagues to oppose the amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Hassel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Aside from the shocking lack of details of this document, I find it appalling that the Conservatives have proposed such a meaty approach to council allowances and expenses for the city. Councils in this room take home £250 million more than other councils in this city. And then while the funding services are being slashed, the city is coming there. There's absolutely no mention of expenses being cut, or the free meal which many here enjoy after most council meetings. While except for the routine and our routine their reputation towards you guys on daily basis, the fact is that some Liberal Democrats take home zero in food and travel expenses. The Conservatives to get absolutely zero in expenses. Conservatives to get happy to notice the truck alongside some of the Labour, while our after one seriously Labour and Conservative. The annual cost expenses taken by the Labour and Tory councils in the city and the free meals would pay for the street cleaning or enforcement officer. This area is becoming the living capital of the region, and this is what we should be doing, not
so why are you opposing the £1.5 million?
That's one of the reasons I will be voting against this amendment.
So why are you opposing the extra £1.5 million in the street cleaning then?
Thank you, Councillor Hassel. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can't support the majority party in opposition's budget amendments for a whole variety of reasons. But I'll start with the key one, which is the Tories casting the cost of society back on society through they're taking money from local authorities away from them because they took need out of the funding formula back in 2010. Back in the glorious days of George Osborne and whoever the leader was back then, but he was a good looking leader for the Tories, and they thought they could get everywhere with PR and spin, and look where we are now. We're 8 years into an austerity programme that we were assured would be finished after 5 years, and councils didn't have to worry because our budgets would be secured end of 2015, and that isn't the case. We've got bigger debts than ever before, whilst the deficit may be down. The Tory party have raised the level of debt for Britain to greater than all Labour governments ever in the past put together, and for them to be suggesting that we reduce the rising council tax from 4.99% to 3%, which would impact hugely on the residents of this city because it would mean that we would have less money to do less things with, I think is absolutely disgraceful. To suggest that we take the 1.5 million out of the budget that's proposed for street cleaning, when as a council, and I thought everybody in this chamber got it, that we've listened to residents have told us we want the streets clean, we want the bins empty, we want the roads done, we want the place to look nice. Please, councillors, find the money to do part of that. And this £1.5 million a year for the next 3 years. And I'm trying to be inclusive and say we're the people who found that money. Right? And it's 90 plus jobs as well. We're going to have increased teams doing more work for the people that we purportedly represent. But you're having politics play with budget again every year because it'll get a headline in the Echo or it'll get a headline on some social media page saying Labour Council won't basically control what it's doing and it's wasting money, which is just utterly wrong. On the party, I sometimes wonder whether the majority party in opposition just toss a coin for the position on this. Because I've had Councillor Wood say we want it free, we want it like Newcastle, we want it like this, we want it like that. Then you've got Councillor Oliver saying, oh no, we need to be making more money out of it. Thankfully, Councillor Morley's already said we're not there to make money. What we need to be doing is running a system that works for the residents of this city. And once again, for the level of money that at least Councillor Oliver mentioned it's not a huge amount. Of course we want more cars in the city, of course we want more people in here spending money and spending time here. But the measurement of it can't be a £100,000 increase that is a massively questionable, achievable thing in 1 year. So I'll leave it at that because we've had quite a lot of comment on it, but I genuinely think that the majority party opposition in this case missed the boat about what they should have been suggesting, and I can't wait for what I'm going to say about my amendments for the minority party in opposition, because that, folks, let's be honest, that is just going to be entertaining as all get out. So oppose the amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Miller, Councillor Howell.
Hello, thank you for that welcome. Come on, George. Madam Mayor, in these times of financial constraints, councils, as we've already heard, have to face the consequences of past government's mishandling of the country's economy. The Labour government under Blair, followed by Brown, borrowed huge amounts of money that we still have to pay back. For every £4 this government spent, £1 was spent by borrowing. Okay?
Just rubbish, George.
The Labour governments have continually thrown money at objects which have proved to be inefficient. In fact, when Gordon Brown left the government, a Treasury official said there was no money left. And that's true, there wasn't any money left. And that's why we're still bearing the burden. Well, come on, we're still bearing the burden. We're still having to pay back the debt that you people have got borrowed. We couldn't pay that.
I'll tell you what the magic money is. We found money for
I turn my attention to the Lib Dems. While the Lib Dems support the Labour Council in raising council tax to 4.99, we on this side of the chamber have suggested an increase of only 3%. While we on this side propose cuts in special allowances, Labour are once again supported by the Lib Dems, the latter three members, two of which get special allowances.
Yes.
And I must say the occasional free meal, because of being seen down there. Madam Mayor, the parking regime in this city has been another example of financial incompetence over the past number of years. While other local authorities have made profits, this council has made huge losses. We on this side will increase, as Councillor Oliver said, parking by 100,000. Madam Mayor, we now have to deal with the mess of litter in our streets, hedgerows, and all over, in fact all over the city. Despite the heroic work of our cleansing department, who have done marvellous work, we still see mountains of litter. What are we going to do about it? Well, environmental in the larger field are affecting this planet on a global scale. Protecting our beaches, seas and oceans is as necessary as life itself. If we are going to leave a planet that will sustain future generations. And as Councillor Oliver proposes, we will give an extra 10,000 for the recycling of plastic bottles. Getting back to our friends, I believe someone mentioned here tonight or this afternoon from Newcastle. I don't know what they're doing here. They propose that local elections should be held every 4 years. You know, they never keep the seats longer than much longer than the really. Local elections being held as they are. It gives residents and voters the right to disagree with the person who's represented.
Exactly.
Exactly. Especially Lib Dems.
George. Don't hold back.
Answer your questions from the bottom tier of politicians.
Go on, George. Get into the
Okay, so if we have an election every 4 years, we're going to get stuck with, for instance, Lib Dems candidates, people can't get to them. And I'm sure that's going to be the case.
Councillor Ward, you need to concentrate on the amendments.
On the amendment, well, I am trying to do it. I am getting constraints from the 3,000, which is the COE can do no good. Just Madam Mayor, as Councillor Oliver has put forward our amendment, the objectives which hopefully will consider carefully. Madam Mayor, I support this amendment.
Councillor Ward, thank you. Sorry about that, I've just ticked you off, that's all.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Hodgson, in speaking to this amendment, accused of having no real plan. But it seems to me the amendment is actually very carefully and clearly set out. Very carefully and clearly set out. He seemed to question whether we were supporting increased spending on adult social care, but Councillor Oliver made it very clear that we were, that there was no question about supporting that element of the budget. And of course the government is in the process of producing a paper on the subject, and as I recall, at the last general election, the Conservative Department was the only department which addressed the issue of increasing expenditure for social care, and wasn't particularly thanked by the electorate for doing so. But nonetheless, perhaps that lesson has been learned. Councillor O'Brien has complained several times during the course of the meeting about the format of our amendment. But it has been, as I understand it, agreed with the opposite to the required. And frankly, if they're satisfied, then I think he should be, and indeed your ruling was to that effect. And it seems to me there's just as much detail in this amendment as there is in the amendments of the Liberal Democrats. It's just they're not as wordy. That's really the difference. Councillor Mordy made a number of speeches already in the overall debate this afternoon. As the new Deputy Council Leader, and I congratulate you, Michael, upon that appointment, and I hope you enjoy it. I note he's already snapping at his leader's heels. That'll be interesting relationship to watch. And he was, of course, quick out of the stocks, castigating austerity. We have to remember the reason for the austerity. Councillor Howe reminded us a huge budget deficit left behind by the government in 2010, which I gather from newspaper reports last week has now been cleared now, that's interesting to see what the impact of that is on future public spending in the years to come. But I also remember, I mean, thankfully I'm no longer leading the opposition. Nothing to do with my colleagues who are excellent friends and councillors. But we have a far better, younger candidate now, or leader, in George Oliver. So I was happy to hand over the reins. But I do recall, at the start of my last period of being leader of the Conservative opposition, a meeting with the then Director of Finance. The topic was very obvious. And she made the comment, she made the point that there is an all-party commitment to austerity in this council. And I repeated that comment in the council chamber subsequently. And it was met with just as much silence and no more contradiction than it has been this afternoon. Now, Councillor Miller talked about austerity as well. We promised the end of austerity in 5 years. Yes, it's taken rather long. It was a huge problem, of course, during the term. But I remember the late Councillor Watson, as leader of the council, on a number of occasions during that period of the Liberal Democrat Conservative coalition government, castigating the government for wanting to get the deficit out of the way in 5 years. That's far too quick, far too soon. It's such a big problem it will take longer. And it seems perhaps that the government took his advice after all. But now at last, it seems that perhaps the deficit has been overcome. But Councillor Miller, I don't think understands the distinction between debt and deficit. If you have a deficit, however small, you will always increase the debt.
Thanks for that.
Well, I've said it before, I'll go on saying as long as I have to. Any debt is increasing the debt. I'm now hopeful that the deficit seems to
What's the level of debt?
being conquered, as it were. We can begin to get down.
How many trillion?
Now, this amendment, as Councillor Oliver said at the outset, which is the real amendment, the Council's not about reshuffling the pack or rearranging the deck chairs. It is the only amendment seeking to keep council tax down, but will change the amount by which council tax increases. And it does underline the fact that the Conservative Party is the lower tax party. It's right to keep taxes down as far as possible. And I believe people should be able to decide for themselves how they spend their money. And the council needs to recognise that all taxes bear down heavily on those with limited means who have to pay them. Councillor Oliver's made the point very clearly about replacing the extra £1.5 million to street cleaning with a cost-neutral council-owned company to enforce the law and collect fines in terms of litter, dog waste and planting. And it will be cost-neutral because the cost will be covered within conveyance from those fines. We're achieving the same object without spending an extra £1.5 million of council taxpayers' money. It seems to me that there has to make sense in really anybody's book. And I suspect that a council company enforcing the law would probably help to keep the streets cleaner, and there will be a £1.5 million increase in the budget. Now, the next point was saving £200,000 by reducing the amount of trade union salaries paid by city council taxpayers. There is a case, as Councillor Oliver conceded, facilitating trade union activity from which the council taxpayer benefits, but not by putting the whole burden on the council taxpayer of those salaries. We propose saving £136 million. No, not million. £136,000 on members' allowances, achieved by reducing the number of special responsibility allowances and the payments to the holders of those posts. Year in and year out, Conservative group leaders have stood up in this council chamber in this debate to make exactly that point. I've done it. Councillor Oliver is doing it again. Councillor Martin did it beforehand, and I believe Councillor Forbes before him. So this is a persistent point that we made, Madam Mayor. The fact that we haven't persuaded the council yet to go down that route doesn't mean to say that we won't keep trying. Just as we'll keep trying to persuade the council to adopt this company to help to enforce the law in terms of collecting fines. One defeat for the council debate is not sufficient to deter us. Now, it was interesting that Councillor Haswell, complimented him on his maiden speech, chose this as the first topic, as it were, complaining and criticising the expenses that are payable to members. The allowance of car mileage, I think, is 45 pence a mile. It's been that since I can remember. I retired from work 20 years ago. It was that then, my place of employment. That hasn't changed at all. In fact, it's actually less than the bus fare. Less than the bus fare. That's an interesting point. Basic allowance in Sunderland is less than the council, certainly than the other councils.
Yeah, that's right.
That has been frozen now for some years, so the real value of that has fallen. I frankly don't mind whether we scrap them here after the council meetings or not. But I do recall a discussion with a council officer in which the suggestion was, I think, that actually it was cheaper to provide a meal than provide the subsistence allowance paid. That's what we've got to take on board in this respect. Now, we have proposed increasing car parking revenue by £100,000, and we've made that point persistently. Council and really considered that point. I would urge that we do take another look at our policy, that we try and adopt a simpler, more welcoming charging structure. Not different rates at almost every car park in the city, but something along the lines of, for example, the first hour being free in multi-stores, and afterwards £1 for the first hour, £2 maximum, something like that. The current terrace car park has a simple pricing structure, and that seems to be pretty popular. I'd also urge Councillor Morley to take another look at the Civic Society report presented last year. Now, the savings that have been outlined will allow some increased spending as well. I think it's quite wrong that people whose wheelie bins are stolen and the theft is reported to the police have to pay to replace them. I think it would be beneficial if we could spend more money on replacing, mending more potholes, as it were. And we proposed a motion last year that was unanimously agreed by the council.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, can I move an extension to allow Councillor Wood to finish?
Go on, go on. I was enjoying that bit. Go on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I have virtually finished because I appreciate the sentiment that is there. Having moved the motion last March, last year, it was unanimously agreed that we take a look at the possibility of depositing the plastic bottles and cans. And naturally, I welcome this element of the motion or the amendment as well. And like the council-owned company, it would help to reduce litter and increase recycling. Now, I think there, in that conservative alternative budget proposed by my colleague Dr. Oliver, there are 7 practical steps to keep council tax down, and with the council-owned enforcement company, bring it a tidier town or a cleaner city. And I'm happy to support them there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace, and Councillor Francis. Would you reserve the right to reply?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Do you want the whole speech or the last 2 lines?
Last 2 lines.
You're getting it. Just for once, put the residents of Sunderland ahead of your ideologies and support these reasonable and mature amendments.
Thank you, Councillor
This is more
Francis.
sometimes, okay.
Can we have the right to reply by please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor has been missing me earlier at the start of the meeting not to welcome our new member into the chamber, and he's proven to be a great support for the Tucker brothers. Councillor Wood mentioned austerity and said it's quiet in the room. I think what we need to point out that the only people that are grasping the nettle to deal with austerity are this group. And our hands are absolutely sore of grasping the nettle. I'm just going to go through a few words on each of the amendment. The council tax reduction. Why haven't they reduced the precept on the good cap? Why didn't they propose that? That would knock a couple of percent off. Street cleaning. You know, Madam, the people of Sunderland are the most caring people you could come across anywhere in the country. I speak to them and they tell me, well, I haven't got an adult person in care. I haven't got a child at school. I haven't got a grandchild. But I'm more than willing to pay my contribution to all of those who have those situations. We're all getting older. Even our new star, Councillor Moody's getting older. Sitting here by the minute. But we really do care, Madam Mayor. And we've listened to them, and what have they said? I would like the place to be clean and green. And that is what Councillor Moody's proposals is trying to do, to make it clean and green. Not just for the people who haven't got the care support that they need, but for all of us. Trade union representatives, the last time I had to go to the trade union opposition, they had big sticks and some of the people they employed was on the back of horses. But we're not going down that route. The trade unions are vital to this council. The downsizing that we've done with this council has been done with the help of the trade unions. And it is a legal duty of this council, Madam Mayor, that we give employees paid or unpaid time off to carry out those valuable duties. Members' allowances has been around for many years and spoke about in this council on many occasions. We need to be reminded and remind our opposition that each local authority is required to establish and maintain an independent remuneration panel where when they come in, every member of this council gets the opportunity to actually make representatives to them. And we comply with this requirement of the Act, and we do act on the recommendations of the remuneration panel every time they come in. The parking. Well, actually, I understand from Councillor Murray that there is a proposal to increase the parking by 10p in June. We need to remember that working with the debate in this city, and we're looking towards another vote of confidence at the end of this year, that they will tell us that parking is the biggest issue that confronts our shoppers in Sunderland. And if we can keep parking down to a minimum, and we can, well, we do offer free after 3 on a Thursday, this does encourage shoppers to come into the town and spend money. Wheelie bins reported to the police. Well, the police have told me that they don't want the reports because what it's actually done, it's skewed their figures. They're reporting, the police commissioner, their figures are looking absolutely silly on giving a receipt back to the person who would report the bin. I would disagree with that in the way because it is a theft. And I think theft should be reported. I totally agree with that. But simply that, you know, we just can't. We cannot afford to continue replacing bins in this city as well as facing the cuts that the government have actually proposed. £200,000. We are £200,000 to replace stolen bins last year. The Highways Operation Programme. This capital programme includes £479,000 for 2018-19, and this is just for popular repairs, and this is actually funded by a government grant. However, the grant funding from the government, it is clear when we receive it from the government, it certainly isn't enough to address our needs. Plastic bottle recycling. Well, we already have a number of places in Sunderland and around our wards where this can actually be done. And again, we wait to see what the government policy and their proposals are in this area. Yeah, you blue bin can take them Councillor Murray, right? And then we can recycle them correctly. So, Madam Mayor, really, thanks to all my colleagues who contributed to having a talk on these amendments, but I would ask Council and Council members not to support these amendments to the budget. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Lisa. And we now vote on the amendment.
Madam Mayor, there are 5 votes in favour, no abstentions, 52 votes against, and therefore the amendment is defeated.
Thank you. And we now move on to the amendment 2. Councillor Hodgson, will you please move the amendment to the revenue budget by reading it out?
See what correct.
Thank you, Mayor Sunderland. The Liberal Democratic Group amendment on the revenue budget is as follows. There are additional savings proposals totalling £869,000. These are made up of the savings from the review of legal services of £85,000, bringing forward savings from the HR review of £50,000, the registrars and staffing fees review of £50,000 as well. £250,000 indeed from a move to 4-year order of elections, £100,000 from a review of area committees and government services, £10,000 from a review of print on demand in government services, £250,000 from a review and reduction of special responsibility allowances, £23,000 from reducing the cost of the role of the Mayor and Deputy Mayor to be replaced by an unpaid but elected Chairperson and Deputy Chairperson, £36,000 from reduction of council's expenses, and £15,000 from the introduction of the workplace parking list. There's then priority investments totaling £869,000. These are to reinstate student travel support for disabled young people, to reinstate a means-tested pest control service, it's £50,000, £146,000 for reinstating means-tested bulky item collection, £53,000 increased funding to our museum and library service that was removed in last year's budget, £560,000 to reinstate voluntary community sector contracts, particularly for agencies supporting disabled and young people. And finally, a revenue neutral proposal to bring in extra staff to work on bringing empty homes back into use with a target of 65 properties a year over 3 years. And that's to be funded from a clause in the additional new homes bonus. I move amendment as follows. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Hudson, I'm not Mayor. And like I said, I'm Madam Mayor, and the Mayor of Sunderland. Understand? Will not be called a Mayor. Councillor O'Brien, do you want to second the motion?
I duly second the amendments and reserve the right to speak.
Madam Mayor?
I do apologise, Madam.
Councillor Hudson, would you like to speak on your amendment?
Thank you, Mayor Sunderland. So this is a practical amendment which seeks to restore funding to services the Council provides to residents, such as pest control, travel support and library services, and tackle problems like dirty streets and empty houses, as well as reinstating Council support to voluntary, community and charitable groups. We're proposing to pay for this by cutting the back office functions here at the Civic and councillor allowances. This is, of course, what residents have asked us to do in the Council's own budget consultation carried out last year. Before I go any further, of course, I would like to thank Barry Scar and Karen Davison for their support of the Democratic Group in preparing these amendments today. I'll talk briefly about 3 of the key points in the amendment. Firstly, regarding voluntary and community sector funding. Now, it's a bit of a deja vu moment because I remember standing here in my first budget meeting last year and making this point then about the cuts the Council was making to voluntary and community agencies. And how shocking and damaging it would be because there's an additional loss when we lose all those volunteer hours, all those community bodies. What surprised me actually recently was seeing the letter of Graham Miller's leadership bid for trying to become leader of this council. That showed to me that actually there are people in this chamber who feel the same way, that while the council is managing to find large pots of money to protect social care, to protect the short-haul ships and other projects that they've got going on, they're failing to protect the small packages which have gone to either collision, disabled support, and that's quite troubling. And it clearly can be done because these amounts are quite small. And as I say, I'm still quite troubled looking at the equalities analysis this year and indeed last year, particularly when it comes to the voluntary and community sector, because the damaging thing is the wider impact. It's one thing to cut this from our budget, but we at the same time in our budget and a lot of council meetings talking about building sustainable communities and empowering communities to be more resourceful. It's clearly more important than ever in the circumstances we're facing and with Brexit looming. But we're failing people by failing to provide the basic support to these services. These are collaborative groups. It's not just cutting their staff, but passing a burden on to other agencies and charities that have to deal with the problems they currently deal with. And we're losing a framework of thousands of volunteers, thousands of hours of work which is already being provided to the council for free. That's what really troubles me about the cuts to the voluntary service and charitable sector over the past few years. If we need community resilience, we need to offer these services a lifeline and keep them going, and we do have the money to do so. This is a large chunk of money which would support things like Age UK, youth provision, disability support, if councillors are willing to support the amendment. The other key part of our amendment relates to empty homes. Now, this is obviously a rising problem in the city, in a lot of our wards. It's set, certainly in places like Southwick, Hendon, Millfield, Pallion, to get worse as the changes in student housing start to take effect, and lots of housing that has been used for students is becoming empty. Now, we're listening to residents here and indeed to the advice of council officers. It's a reasonable and practical amendment to introduce 3 staff working on producing, getting empty homes back into circulation. It can be cost neutral. Indeed, Durham County Council in their budget last month have proposed doing exactly this. I think in the circumstances that we're facing with austerity, it's a good idea for councils like ours to follow good examples from other councils. Indeed, the Labour Council in Durham, where they're proposing to, with an injection of 1 year to cover the staff costs, and further salaries will be paid for by the new homes bonus, which means that the equivalent of additional Band D council tax per year for 4 years for every net property brought back into use. That money is there if we can find a way of using it. And as I said, the proposal is revenue neutral and only asks that these 3 officers would bring back into use an additional 1% of empty properties in Sunderland. So it's not a particularly impractical idea. The final point I would like to re-emphasise, again going back to my experience last year, is we do need to see a reduction in council allowances in Sunderland to bring it in line with Newcastle. It's not a great deal. It's 250,000 pounds. That's right. Newcastle is £250,000 a year cheaper in terms of council allowances than Sunderland. Why? If they can do it, surely we can. And so what we're doing is imposing cuts to special responsibility allowances across the board, cutting councillors' meals, expenses, free parking, cutting the role of the mayor. These changes would save over £350,000 per year. And what's more, it's what the residents asked for. You conducted this massive budget consultation, the residents came back, they said they would like to see councillors share the burden. It would be quite clear if we all did it, every party and none, across the chamber made a reduction.
Yours didn't.
Mayor, I'm not sure, so...
Yours increased.
This is what really concerns me. As I said, the council has invited the public opinion and continued to ignore it. Now, earlier on in this meeting, we've heard mention of the independent panel. I agree there is an independent panel, and the Liberal Democrat group has made formal representations to that panel with what I'm saying here today, that those allowances should be reduced in line with other comparable regional authorities. I'll not go on to know it has gone quite well so far, and I'll leave it to my colleagues to say a bit more about that budget. But as I say, it is a practical one which seeks to restore services to residents above all else and cut money here in the civic centre. Thank you very much.
Does anyone wish to speak on the amendments?
Councillor Hope, Councillor Williams, Councillor Dixon, Councillor Oliver, Councillor Kelly, Councillor Lofton, Councillor Jay, Councillor Graham-Miller, Councillor Lawson, Councillor Haswell,
Councillor Hurren.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to speak on the role of the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor. Councillor Hodgson wants to do away with. I had the privilege to be Mayor in 2003 and 4. The Mayor is here not just to chair the council meetings, but to act as an ambassador for the city. The Mayor also, in my mayor year, did over 500 engagements. We also have connections with the Armed Forces and HMS Ocean, which is actually being decommissioned by the Tory government. The Armed Forces, especially the Army, is the highest recruiting forces in the city of Sunderland. And why shouldn't the Mayor go and thank these men for their service to our country? We also have the largest remembrance parade in, the second known, there's London and then there's Sunderland, and this is actually televised on the television, and it's credit to the city. We also have schools up into the Mayor's Parlour to talk about local government. That's education. We have exchange students from Poland, China, invite them to the Mayor's Parlour and explain what local government is. I think the Mayor is value for money and an asset to this city.
Well said.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just really would like to pick out a few things. I was a bit surprised to see the move to 4 yearly all-up elections. I would have thought particularly the Liberal Democrats are very much for democracy, so the current programme we have of every 3 years with a foul year seems to offer more opportunities to the electorate to be able to make their views known. I am surprised at that one. Again, I'm not surprised at the special responsibility allowances. Again, you can lead by example and give yours up, particularly as you've had more rises than anyone else within this chamber. Following on quickly, just from Councillor Horan, the civic pride that we have with having a mayor in the mayoral office, I think is something we should be celebrating. I'm afraid your lack of respect to the mayor doesn't help this situation, and I would suggest that comes from a personal agenda rather than anything else. I'm looking down a bit towards reinstate means tested. Means testing is another situation that gets you into something that's really difficult to get out of. People then have to prove that they are entitled to that. That then has an impact on the staff who are doing that. There's no wins in that. Plus also, I find a lot of the families who struggle most are those who aren't on benefits. They are those families who are working 2 and 3 jobs to keep their heads above the water. Those are the people who will feel affronted that they're having no support with that. Unfortunately, the mess we make as an individual is down to us as an individual to deal with, to get rid of one way or another. You either take it to the tip. If you can't take it to the tip, you persuade a friend to do that, you get together, you do everything you can. But to fly tip is absolutely no excuse. Reinstate the voluntary community sector contracts. We'd just like to point out that there was a consortium who put together a bid for youth work, which I must admit I wasn't too happy at losing, but the consortium had been able to pull together some funding to keep our youth work going, and I do think that's down to the commitment our voluntary and community sector have with us and in the way that we work with them as equal partners. Just turning over the page, finally, the last comment I would make is on the port. How on earth would you want to cancel improvements to the port? We need a port to bring jobs, to bring infrastructure into this city. We're going to have an IAM in a few years' time. We need clear lines, we need it joined up. To actually take away that investment from the port is going to be a kick in the teeth, really. We need people to come to be able to have the access to rail or to water, whichever way they're going to bring their goods in, to make it as effective as possible, so that people will come here and want to invest and want to employ our local people, because that's what it's all about. If we keep people in work, it makes us a more prosperous city. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Dixon.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'm just going to mention just 2 or 3 points, actually. I agree entirely with what Councillor Herron has said about the role you play. In fact, and your predecessors and successors, it's almost like trying to do away with the monarchy. We have this argument in the country, but who will replace it? I'm not aligned with the Queen, Madam Mayor, who would replace people such as yourself and yourselves who've done such a wonderful job for the city? I mean, are we looking at unpaid elected chair people? Who could we suggest? Norman Scott? I just don't know. But it could be anybody who just wasn't up to the standard of the civic feel that you have for the job. And I completely am against that. It's a traditionalist view, but that's the way it is. As far as expenses for meals, I should have declared an interest because I have a low sugar content. I just can't wait to get out there, have mince and dumplings. On the empty homes issue, the 3 members of staff to bring in, I do notice in the capital budget that actually this has been addressed. Councillor Miller, which you're probably going to mention, on page 73, the loans are back on the map, 390,000, and then financial assistance for 228. So if we take the Liberals' view, we're going to spend £1.5 million on empty houses. So I think you haven't done your arithmetic there. I do hope, Councillor Miller, sorry I'm digressing, that the back on the map alone might extend beyond Hendon, because there are other areas which require it, but we'll have to go into that. And the other one, on the capital budget, cancel software centre car park improvements. I mean, we had a talk for our scrutiny meeting, the Economic Prosperity Scrutiny Committee, by a person about the software centre car park. One member actually made the point that the improvements were essential for the occupancy to go somewhere between 65-70% in the 60s. It needs a push, and to cancel car park improvements would be just suicidal as far as I'm concerned. It's one of the main hopes that the occupancy will rise once the new improvement is made. So I just honestly do not think that one's been thought through. So I'm against this amendment for a variety of reasons. And I would like to say to the Liberal Democrats that there's nobody really here in this chamber today other than those who want to work in public service. And there are elements of your amendments which suggest to me that you think there's a lot of people here on the make, and I completely reject that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just say a few things. First of all, can I associate myself with the comments that Councillor Dixon has said. It might take a brave councillor to actually stand up for councillors' allowances, but as I said earlier, there is a reason why people who are elected get paid, and it is a good reason. And we must be very, very careful not to engage in some sort of race to the bottom on it, and not sort of smear everyone, that everyone is on the take, that everyone is just in it for the money, that everyone is taking as much as they can. There is, of course, the other side of it, that people are engaging in public service and are expecting to be reasonably remunerated for it. But on that point, Madam Mayor, I would say that, of course, the Liberal Democrat group is the smallest group on the entire council that receives special responsibility allowances. Per capita to the highest. Only 3 of them, 2 special responsibility allowances. The smallest, tiniest little group on the council. Can I just say a few other things? A few other matters that were brought up in the amendment. I agree entirely with Councillor Williams, who's pointed out the difficulty of means testing benefits. I mean, if means testing benefits work, then why don't we do it? The reason is because we've tried, various governments have tried to do this, and it ends up being too complicated. People lose out, they don't claim it, and it ends up being much, much worse. I mean, the Labour government moved from means tested to universal benefits as well, so it's simply an impractical suggestion on means tested benefits. Can I also express some concern about the bringing forward of savings? We need to be responsible as councillors that we are the ones who are voting on this budget and the consequences for it. And I do feel that some of the proposals on this amendment would actually increase pressure on the staff at the Civic Centre. And I think we need to be very, very careful about not doing that any more than we absolutely need to. Just really on the last point I was going to mention, which was the proposal to have elections only once every 4 years. Now that really is something that's much more common in county councils in Northumberland and Durham. There are not that many metropolitan councils that do that, and I think, as has been pointed out, the problem with that is you're denying people the opportunity to have their say in a democracy, to vote and to express their preferences. You're asking them to do that once every 4 years, once every 12 months, and for better or for worse, for whichever party, I think that they should be able to keep that right. And of course, on the point of elections, of course, one way, of course, a very practical way we could have saved money this year was, of course, not to have had a by-election in Pallion Ward, which had been put forward. Could have been rolled into the May elections, but two members of the public before that don't know who they were and what connection they had with any political groups. That by-election.
From Newcastle.
Madam Mayor, that by-election has cost the taxpayer of this city £10,000.
You're worth every penny.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, a number of things have been said which I wholeheartedly agree with. This amendment is a bunch of people who don't really know how the city works and have not sat and thought through it. I'll pick up a couple on my departments directly. £500,000 removed from tall ships. Well, tell you what I'll do with the infrastructure. I'm not bothered putting barriers along the side of the water, and when children fall in, you can explain why that happened. I won't put the barriers there that protect people. This is what this money means, it's what plays through. You go on about 50,000 going back into replace library and museum staff. That's 1.7 of a member of staff. And given the fact that we've moved from a number of things because of austerity, which first came into the Lib Dems and the Conservatives, we've had to close a number of libraries, unfortunately, within the city. To pay compliments to those people who have taken on board and run voluntary libraries and full extremely great example of it. I give compliments to them. Madam Mayor, I welcome young people into the chamber. I do really welcome the young people coming into the chamber. There are some of us who aren't as young as we like to be. However, if you are going to be a young person coming into the chamber, I suggest you go and speak to our youth parliament because they'll show you how to conduct yourself in the correct manner. Madam Mayor, I'm looking at our three Lib Dem colleagues there, and I'm reminded of the old proverb, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Except for these, it's see no sense, hear no sense, speak no sense. Thank you, Madam
Mayor. Councillor Gloucester.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will be brief. The interesting thing as I look over to the colleagues who have brought this amendment, Madam Mayor, is that I think they don't understand, and this is more or less what Councillor Kelly's just said, how the council works. The area committee budget and the area committee mechanism is in place to support the voluntary community sector, deliver services and provide support to members of the community on our behalf. Area committees, guys, exist to do just that. Every everyone, an area committee is an unusual thing, Madam Mayor, which you will know. Everyone in this chamber is a member of an area committee. That's not the case for any other committee that we have, other than actual council. So everyone here knows that the money that they have at their disposal goes to run our libraries that we can no longer run because of their cuts, to help the isolated, to provide support for those with dementia, to, through the community chest, to provide a few toys for a playgroup, Madam Mayor. It is money that we can give quickly and easily and highly audited, so very effectively, very correctly, directly to the community. Now, everyone here, apart from our colleagues from the Lib Dems, knows that. For 10 years, Madam Mayor, while this has been part of my portfolio, I have fought, along with my colleagues, to hang on to that budget, and it has been a fight every single year, but we have won. Now, Madam Mayor, I've only got a few weeks to go before I retire, but this is not going to happen on my watch. What happens when I'm not here has nothing really to do with me, but I absolutely reject that part of this proposal. I clearly also reject the rest, but I specifically reject that part of this proposal, and I urge my colleagues on all sides of the chamber, clearly apart from the Lib Dems, to support me in doing that. I reject that part of the proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Gosling. Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Kelly said that some of us aren't as young as we used to be. I have to admit, today is my birthday, so officially I am indeed not as young as I used to be. But don't give too much away, Councillor Kelly.
I know how old she is.
Good man, checkmate. I think my comments for the Liberal Democratic Group amendments really fall into two categories, Madam Mayor. One is size and one is identity. Why size? Well, clearly they're growing. Organically and by-election, by-by-election, as Councillor Morley pointed out. And we're clearly struggling to come to grips with what we should think of them as. The leader earlier on talked about the Truckle Brothers plus one. Councillor Kelly in the end, and I think Councillor Howe talked about the famous three monkeys. But I think if you listen to the undertone of everything they've said today, they're really angry young men. And you? Are they Harold Pinter? Are they John Osborne? Are they Kingsley Ennis? Don't think so. But the anger, well, perhaps they're going to try and imitate them, perhaps they will, but they use big words. They were very good on big words. And what identity they have, if anger is all they have, if lack of respect for the heritage and history of the mayoralty, lack of respect for the city as a whole is all they're going to bring to the table, that part of the council chamber is going to be very empty in the not too distant future, because there won't be any Liberal Democrats occupying it. And I have to say, again, looking at the Conservative group in opposition, that the sentiment expressed by Councillor Dixon and reinforced by other members is completely right. The thought or the implication that any member is here for some nefarious purpose is just shameful and just reinforces the perspective that the minority group have of civic life in Sunderland and their notion of civic pride. Identity. Now this is the really worrying bit, Madam Mayor. Councillor Hodgson has admitted that he has sampled Councillor Miller's leadership testimony, whatever that might be called. Now, yes, indeed, Councillor, it was spoken, it is in evidence, it has been written down. And he says, someone thinks like me. Is this the sign of things to come? Is a crossing of the floor upon us? Has Councillor Miller's wise words struck such a And will the deputy become the leader? Or will the new kid on the block become subjects? And you're about to retire. Oh, you're about to retire. What you will miss. Man, I think across all the comments that have been provided, both from the majority group and the minority group, the majority group in opposition, clearly there is no basis for these amendments. And going back, I'll finish on the size thing. They talk about 800,000, almost 900,000 pounds of money being moved around, which is way less than even 1% of the overall revenue budget that we've approved here this afternoon. So by definition and by implication, they agree with 99.99% of what we're going to do. So if you're going to be angry, at least have something to be angry about.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have to say that I look down into the well at my Liberal Democrat colleagues, and I'm very nearly filled with admiration at the brass neck. To sit there and put forward a set of amendments which are farcical and plain wrong, just to be politicking, because that's all it's about, just actually drives the fire in me and the anger in me to ensure that we don't get any more of them, and as quick as we can we get less of them. This city is £290+ million in a hole because of your party making the Tories get into government in 2010. Your party went into coalition for a handful of ministerial pensions and a knighthood for Nick Clegg. And you sit there and you try and lecture us on money when we're the people who've had to deal with 8 years of that, and it could never have happened, gentlemen, it could never have happened. Osborne would never have been Chancellor, Cameron would never have been Prime Minister, if you hadn't gone into coalition with them and then given them the chequebook to do what they did. So I'm not going to be lectured on money by you three, ever, until your party atones for that shameful act that it did in 2010. Now, they don't care how the council works. They don't care. Their whole nature and reason for being is about the worst in political manoeuvring. Everything they do and say is about the next election. Everything that they do and say is about how they get the next Liberal councillor in Sunderland. It has nothing to do with what the vast majority of people in here is about, which is representing the electorate that put us here to try and deliver services to enable us to give people what they need going forward. These three down there do not care. It's about how we get another councillor. They're trying to ride the coattails of this council, this Labour group, and our policies to claim success for things that are about to be. We've seen it before. The Liberals do this all the time. What's coming through? Right, let's talk about that, because we know in 3 months' time it's going to be there. And then we'll be able to say, Liberal Democrats said this in council, look what we've done for your residents. It is the worst political politicking imaginable, but they are masters of it, and we have to be aware of it. So that is why the brass neckness of them is remarkable. I want to touch base on 4 things within the massive list, and I could talk about them all, but honestly, I'd run out of breath. They mentioned the disabled student travel support and how to reinstate it. Well, it was never removed. And this is another, it was never removed, Councillor O'Brien. It is not a lie. Maybe. I'll just ask you to withdraw the fact that you're accusing me of being a liar here. Think very carefully what you say. Right? If you had merely asked about it, you would know that we didn't remove it. We basically have a policy that affects post-16 learners. Right? Including, no, we had to introduce means testing because of a lack of money. We did not withdraw. Your amendment says reinstate. We didn't remove anything. we amended a policy to cover what we did. No, you need to actually ask, you need to come into, it's like talking to children, and other people in this chamber have said it. It's like talking to children who will not listen to people who, if they come and talk to them, and I've offered you this many, many times, guys, actually come and talk to cabinet members, talk to majority party members of the opposition who, like Peter and... This is a forum for talking. This is a forum, but you know what, you have a better conversation if you know what you're talking about, Councillor Watson. All I'm getting from you...
Excuse me.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Now, the part within the amendment which goes on about 3 extra staff to work in empty homes, and talking about riding on the coattails of the council. Have you been sleeping through the council meetings where we've introduced Sunderland homes? Where we've said that we're tackling the empty homes issue in the city. We have 2,555 empty properties. Sunderland homes have been set up to start addressing that. We've already committed staff, we've already committed a budget to bringing things back into use to try and take ownership. Have you been unaware of all of that? Or once again, is it just so that you can say, look, we brought it up in council and lo and behold the council's doing it? Because that's what I think you're doing, guys. And it's a nonsense. And it will not be done. And I'm just disappointed that a bunch of people who were here supposedly supporting you have gone so that they don't hear this.
Yeah, got to get the metro.
Now, at the end of the day, the investment in housing services, well, we're already doing that. We've invested more than your 2 million in it. But maybe if you actually have a think about what you're doing and actually had a conversation with people rather than trying to make cheap points, which is a fruitless exercise, guys. You're meant to be here. You're meant to be better than that. You really are meant to be better than that. And once again, you bang on in the worst way about remuneration and councillors' allowances. And I agree with everything Councillor Oliver said. If we don't value ourselves, and everybody in this chamber, and I'll include you in it, everybody in this chamber is here to attempt to do something better for the people of the city. And people aren't working. They're doing this as a full-time job, some people. The allowances are there to enable you to help to get that job done. And you bang on in the worst political populist way about councillors being noses in the trough, MPs being noses in the trough. It's utterly disgraceful. And especially when you are the worst proponents of it. And we could beat you with a stick all day on this. And we try not to, because you know why? Because we're grown-ups on this side of the chamber, and on that side of the chamber, but in the well, staff excluded, and aldermen, my apologies. That definitely does not seem to be the case. You know, come on, you've got to be bigger than that. We have set a budget that is enforced on us by government. It is much, much less than it would have been had the Tories never got into government, but they did. And now we have a Tory government because we got in 2010. At least take responsibility for your party's decisions and the history of what you've done, and try not to blame us for putting forward a balanced budget that delivers for the people of the city, and we care about it. And you, if you carry on just doing your cheap shots, guys, you'll just be cheap. Thanks, Madam Mayor. I obviously oppose the amendment.
Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to go back to 2010 as well and remind our Lib Dem colleagues how, you know, good mates Dave and Nick formed that coalition and embarked on that austerity programme which finds us in the position we are this afternoon. One of the things I just wanted to concentrate on is area committees, and I know Celia, Councillor Goffin has spoken very well about the value of them, but I would just like to just take that a little bit further. Because I've been surprised by how robust the voluntary and community sector network is, particularly in the Coalfield area, and I'm sure it's like that across the city. And I don't get what Councillor Hodgson is saying, that we don't support the voluntary community sector, because every day in the coalfield I see the commitment of the voluntary community sector in helping us to deliver on priorities that we've jointly agreed with councillors, with members of the public, with people who are part of that voluntary community sector. And I'm so proud at times to be chair of an area committee and see what relatively small amounts of money that this council gives actually delivers. And you know, at the risk of sounding like a character from one of my favourite television programmes, and what we've got is local councillors making local decisions about where that local funding is spent. And I think, you know, for area committees, that's the strength of them. We don't have to fight amongst ourselves for little bits of funding that's going to benefit our communities, because area committees know where that money should be spent. It really is good value for money. You know, we help vulnerable people, we help the socially isolated, we help children, we help young people, all helping to build resilience into communities at a time when it's needed more than it ever was. You know, that money, that SIB funding, the officers that work very hard with area committees, it is money well spent when we see what it delivers. And I don't know if Councillor Hodgson actually takes part in his area committee or how much he knows about what area committees do, but maybe he should, you know, interrogate it a little bit more so that he knows what we're doing. So why on earth the Dems would want to reduce funding by reducing funding to area committees and reducing the number of them is just beyond me. But as Councillor Lofton said, maybe they just don't understand. And as Councillor Miller said, maybe they just don't care. I would oppose this amendment in its entirety, Madam Mayor, and I would urge my colleagues to do the same.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Councillor Haslow.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to speak in support of our amendments. It brings forward two really key issues, especially that I've heard from the residents of my ward. I'm shocked and disappointed at the response that our amendments had. We tried to talk about reintroducing the OPI collection for the most vulnerable, the people who are on the lowest incomes. It is a fact. Areas of this city are being blighted by a plague of fly tipping. We know about it, we all see it, and we all talk about it. And yet, when we're trying to do something about it, the response has been to absolutely disregard it and complain about means testing. We accept there isn't money to completely reinstate it, but it would be good to see an element put forward for those who need it most. And that's why I put all that forward. Secondly, around free pest control services. It is a national, we are of national renown for having a rat problem in this city. And it's and it is a fact that we need to look at what we can do to support residents again, because it is the most vulnerable who are suffering and seeing rats coming in their homes, getting in their kitchens. And I receive phone calls from these residents if you come to management and horror, the fact they can't get into involved and are asked to pay £50. Then that £50 is a week's shop. That's not fair, and that's why we brought this forward. And finally, on the issue of area committees, we aren't proposing to scrap them, we're proposing to downsize and concentrate on a smaller or bigger area and take it to the And I'll say this, I'm a relatively councillor, and I've attended meetings with Place Board, and I also attended a priority setting workshop. And to be quite frank, I found it a appalling shop where nonsense ideas were brought forward, such as ideas to fine school children for littering. And we sat with a 20-minute discussion yesterday on fining children. These are school children, and their parents are going to have to pay, and they are trying to put food on the table. And for a Labour councillor to suggest that we hit the most vulnerable was shocking. And to be frank, that's why we need to look at these issues, because really we need a bigger conversation about what we do in the area. And I do ask that people consider support this, because these are three big issues where we can do this.
Councillor O'Brien, would you like to reserve the right?
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. I want to speak about actually the reinstatement of disabled students travel support is a matter of personal care for me, because many may not know it, but I suffer from 3 disabilities which affect me in a profound way. One of them being neurological and one of them being dyslexic. Without, and I'll say this now, as an 11-year-old child, as an 11-year-old child, I got on a bus and I had a partial seizure. That bus driver threw me off the bus at age 11 because I had a seizure. And Councillor Miller has the gall and the audacity to say I don't care about that. Well, it's happened to me, Councillor Miller. It happened to me. Because I jumped out that bus and I was walking at 11 years old, a mile from my school. I'll get to it, Tory's actually at the moment. Just 2 weeks into my education, and every day of my education, for having these disabilities are important. Some people might disagree, but I think they're valuable every single day. And in fact, a Tory council in Clitheroe allowed my parents who worked every day of their lives to subsidise my travel to and from school, and that was a Conservative council. A Conservative council doing that. I thought you had more heart than means testing disabled children and young adults. I'll tell you another story. Madam Mayor, there is a sorry.
You're asking for names testing?
No, not next. Hang on, let's
Selected means
please.
Or selected.
Just
mean go on.
Let me speak. I'll tell you a story from a young lad who's 18 years of age from my ward, who's autistic, whose single mother parent earns just over the means testing. And that 18-year-old young adult has had his dreams shattered because he wanted to be, I know Councillor, this might not be important, but it's actually quite important.
Consulting my colleague.
So I'll carry on. Who just wanted to be a chef. That's all he wanted to do. And you've taken that young adult's prospects away. The sheer amount of human potential, what could be at risk here. There's the sheer amount of human potential from what, 60 grand. We are debating over £60,000 to allow disabled young adults the right to get an education and the right to have safe passage to that education. Which I'm going to reiterate this again. As a secondary school student, that happens to me. And it's the most life-changing founding that happened to anyone. I didn't know I had epilepsy at the time. My parents didn't know I had epilepsy at the time. I could have had a seizure walking to school. Another one. That seizure could have affected me in much more profound ways than it has done. And actually, because a Conservative council allowed me that, I'll be grateful to my Conservative colleagues and say thank you for that, allowed me safe passage to and from school. I'm here today. I might not be articulate. I sometimes might flip up my lines and say and mispronounce words because of my dyslexia. I know Councillor Allen has made a couple of jokes about that in the past. But I do care about this. I really do care. In a profound way, which without the assistance of travel to and from school, I don't know if I could make it here. And that's why we cannot let this cup go on. We really can't, guys. It is pure paramount need for these kids to be able to go to and from school. Because, again, for example, two from my secondary school, I may not been able to go to university. I then may have not been able to get in. And that is a damn shame. If we don't get more people in here who are young, I know Councillor Mordy suggested with young guys, even though we're probably about the same age actually. Without that, we cannot be truly represented. I'm a person with disabilities. I know that sometimes I put my words and I'm not very appealing, but we need more people like me from every party. We need more people that have minority groups. We need no people who come from poor backgrounds. And we damn well.
If you do, start getting some women.
Well, we might actually. More people will be standing in May. So you never know. We need to have all these things in place. We need to be more representative of the people we represent out there. And I was going to talk about the introduction of annual elections. It happens in Rocklands. The Metropolitan Borough there moves forward for 4 yearly elections. They've saved money for it. Not only that, it actually gives more ability to the general public to get rid of you lot if you so wish. It's always they can sweep you out in one fell swoop. And they're unable to do that actually, so it gives more democracy.
That's Greg's plan.
That's Greg's. Well, that might be Greg's plan. At least one of our parties, Jeremy Corbyn doing whatever he's doing at the moment, which is not providing an adequate opposition. To conclude, Madam Mayor, I really do think our amendments are set out and are responsible, and actually, more particularly, the reinstatement of all provision to all disabled kids, no matter from what background you come from, should be reinstated immediately. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Lady, would you like to reply?
I'll be very brief, Madam Mayor. I wanted to put facts onto some of these recommendations that I've put in. I think James lads probably think you've had a bad deal with the office this afternoon. I'm going to deal with yours first, and I'm going to turn over the page and fully understand where you're coming from. I've been a governor for 24 years on a special needs school, and I know the care that is needed from a very young age to come through to be responsible adult. But as Councillor did say, we have not removed the disabled students' travel, certainly not for post-16, and I think Councillor Miller was right in the way he described it, and I know that Councillor Miller will invite you any time you want into his office to have that debate and to actually thrust this out and see if he can help in any way, not just with yourself, but for all the other people who you've stood up and represented. All of elections, actually, you're wrong with the figures, 250,000 actually only represents the ceiling in a fallow year. So every fourth year we'd actually be looking for the budget of 250,000 and we'd need to find that. The review of goodness services, as Councillor Goffin explained, the area committees we feel, and I don't know whether you attend those, are very, very much respected and needed by the people, certainly in my ward and in my constituency. And I think protecting that budget has been an absolute fine thing that Councillor Goffin has strived for. And we do appreciate being able to help our residents where there's a particular need that needs responding to. Review of government services, we've been doing this for quite some time. We've been looking at the way we print stuff, the way we receive stuff, and certainly more needs to be done, and that will continue with that. Special responsibility allowances, remuneration panel, you know, I've mentioned it, I'm not going to go into any more. The same with the mayor, the mayoral and deputy mayors, the removal of £23,000. I think the residents of Sunderland really respect what the mayor do for the people in this city. And actually, even though the allowances that the mayor receives need to be subject to scrutiny, we do actually put them forward to the remuneration panel to review that. I do know that Madam Mayor, like previous mayors and mayors that will come along in the future, spend an awful lot of their own income on events, what they attend, and so forth. As Councillor Wood mentioned, the meal after council, actually, if under the current system, again by the remuneration plan, if we allowed our members to submit their claim for the subsistence, it would actually be more than what the council meal provides. And Councillor Dixon, I'm sorry there's no mince and dumplings on. There's no even after this meeting. What? No. I mentioned, I know what I've just mentioned in Councillor O'Brien, that there is a means test, and this is simply because of the lack of funding that we have. Actually, I hate mean testing. I think it is an absolute awful way of doing things. And I don't need to get the right result of certain people. Certain people are very, very proud. Veterans will stand there and tell you they can manage, even though we know for a fact they're not. So I just against means testing. When we look at the reinstatement of the means test for budgetary waste, well, are we actually saying that the poor people are the ones that's doing the flights of them? Because that's what it seems to indicate. The library, I think Councillor Kelly's covered very, very well, and I've got to say my thanks to the volunteers. I've done a full, not that many months ago, so the great work that's been done there. The community sector contracts, I think Councillor Hall and Councillor Williams, Councillor Lawson. Right, that's gone back. That's a wrong way there, Councillor Lawson. And actually, if we move down to the one at the end, where you've got your figures wrong, the 3 extra staff to work on empty homes. The new home bonus is paid on a day equivalent, actually, as the majority of empty homes to be brought back into use are likely to be in the lower bands of A and B, will need 90 properties brought back into use to fund the 3 posts. Madam Mayor, it's been a long afternoon, we've still got some to go, but I ask members to totally reject these amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. So can we go for the vote on this amendment?
There are 3 votes in favour, no abstentions and 55 votes against, and therefore the amendment is defeated.
Move on now. Can I ask if there's any members have a comment or a question on the substantive motion? If so, sorry, I think there's a page missing on my agenda. Councillor Hodgson, will you please move the amendment of the capital budget by reading it out?
I will, Mayor, thank you. So, amendment to the capital follows. There are additional savings proposals of £6,491,000 related to cancelling software centre car park improvements, port improvement projects, reducing the toll ships funding, reducing the council contribution to increasing the access coverage project, and reducing the ground budget, although they're technically moved into priority investment elsewhere. Priority investments total the same amount, £6,491,000. They relate to investment in public services budget, a new discretionary rotary servicing budget, and developing a public library and community hub at the Rotary site. Move the motion, thank you.
Move the amendment.
Yes.
Councillor O'Brien, do you want to second the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Duly second the motion.
Councillor Hudson, would you like to speak on your amendment?
I will know some of I will be brief. Obviously, this largely relates to things that have been touched upon already. We as a group do have concerns about aspects of the council's financial management, overspends on things like toll ships, the air shows, Sunderland Live, the ongoing problems at the Vaux site. This is why we're a bit reluctant to trust this current cabinet with yet more millions of pounds of investment, and we'd actually rather see it spent where the public wants it spent. I'd like to trust residents, and they want to see that we're spending money on tackling our city environment, our empty homes, our roads, which have been spoken about already. I'll just pick up very briefly on one item, which is, frankly, our quite embarrassing library provision at the moment. Whilst I understand the need to cut branch libraries, and there have been great work done by volunteer groups, including one that was just there was a meeting today about the getting Keele Road back and running. What concerns me actually is the city centre library. That's really a city like Sunderland is reduced to having our library provision is a room in a museum, and I know there is a budget to try and address this somewhat, but it's inadequate, frankly. When you look at Durham and Gateshead and South Shields and Newcastle, it does not look very good for our city, and it's wrong to try and assume this is something about lending figures. I know that's come up when libraries have come up before. It's a lack of free community space, a lack of internet access, a lack of space for community groups in the city centre. It worries me that other neighbouring authorities, and indeed authorities elsewhere, have managed to improve certainly their city centre and their hub library provision dramatically and quite impressively, while Sunderland is only scaling back and back. As I say, one thing that I've tried to combine with this capital budget is just the reusing budgets that already exist to improve the Rotary site. I think it would be very important to have at the Rotary site or Peel Square or indeed the Vaux site some form of free public space. There's a lot of money going into that part of Sunderland, and it seems a shame that that's entirely retail, commercial, private accommodation. It's important, I think, when we're spending these sorts of sums of money in our city centre, that we do provide public spaces for people, and that's the basis behind this part of the budget. So I'll put it forward to you there. Thank you.
Councillor Hudson.
Sorry, Garrison. Thank you.
Twice. Councillor O'Brien, do you second the motion?
I've already
Or
said.
do you need to speak on the amendments? Get me confused now. Did you ask for the reserve to speak or not? No. So do you need to speak on it now?
No, I'm going to.
Right. Does anyone wish to speak on the amendments?
Oh, that's just Go on then.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wish to oppose the amendment. I want to make some brief comments about three of these proposals. First is the software centre. I was a member of the planning committee when the planning permission was initially given to the building in Tavistock Place. and there was a good deal of discussion about it, and there was quite a bit of criticism about the lack of parking. Now, I think to cancel the software centre car park improvements does not, to my mind, make sense, because we do need additional car parking in that area. And hopefully, as a result of that, it will help speed up the use, the occupation of the software centre. I do have some concerns that it is taking so long, but I recognise the need to provide the associated infrastructure facilities to guarantee, if we can, its success. Secondly, the tall ships. Now, I do take the point that there are costs associated with the tall ships event from the summer. I think the media presentation has tended to suggest that it's all plus, it's all benefits to us. But there are costs that we incur as a consequence of that. Not simply that it does interfere a bit with the business, commercial business of the port. But I frankly welcome the tall ships coming. I think the benefits overall will certainly exceed the costs. I think the residents of the city will enjoy having the tall ships, and I think a lot of people will come to the city as a consequence, and I think that will be beneficial to our economy. So I think action which would seem to detract from that, not to my mind, a sensible proposal. Might be a little Democrat proposal, but it's not a sensible proposal. And then as far as the port is concerned, perhaps I have a partial interest as a member of the port board. But the port is actually, I think, one of the city's success stories. It operates at a surplus, an operational surplus, which I don't think is something the port entirely can necessarily claim. Trade is increasing at the port, even though the conditions are difficult. And it needs continuing investment to continue to be successful. And if we don't invest, then frankly what is going to happen is we're going to have to say goodbye to trade. It's going to go to sea, it's going to go to Bar, it's going to go to the port of time, which has certain associations with us. Perhaps even to tea. So I'm very strenuously would oppose that suggested say. So because of the software centre proposals, the port proposals, and the tall ships proposals, I have no hesitation in voting against this.
Councillor Wood, Councillor Dixon.
I'd like to apologise, but I don't feel particularly wrong about it, for getting the revenue budget mixed up with the capital budgets. And to prove that we are individuals in the Conservative Party, I had no idea Councillor Wood was going to speak on the software centre, and neither had he any idea that I was going to speak about it at the wrong time. But I agree entirely with what he said now and what I said earlier.
Consistency!
It would be the most ridiculous of times, I have said this, I'll just repeat, to pull the plug on a car park proposal near the software centre. We're told by officers that it does take time, 12 years, to get the occupancy in places like this at full speed. As I said earlier, 60% it needs assistance, and a car park is what it needs. So it's just crazy of my Liberal colleagues to suggest it. But where I do agree a little bit with Councillor Hodgson is about the library and the Winter Garden Museum. I'm a regular user of the library, I've been for many years, wherever it's been. And I know there's money that's allocated for 335,000, but I do hope you use it wisely. It's looking very tired. Things like the miners' strike, I read some times with a lot of things that's going on, but that is looking very, very tired, and it probably needs re-looking at and new something like the culture bit that we no, just a minute. We had a talk last night at our scrutiny meeting about the follow-on from the unsuccessful culture bit. Now, why can't we use maybe that area to really promote Sunderland?
not just the bits of counters and cards, but something a bit more extensive. So, yeah, I don't agree with the expenditure that the Liberals have got in mind or their proposals, but I do think the museum library needs attention, and this is mentioned a lot by the public. But thank you for your forbearance. I shall be speaking again. I oppose the...
Thank you, Councillor Kelly.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, just a couple of quick ones, because again, for a second wrong, wasn't overspent on the air show. The air show came in slightly under profit. The illumination made a profit this year, and we continue to invest in our events accordingly, because they do bring huge amounts of money back into the city. Madam Mayor, I mean, there is, within the capital budgets and that which we had recently, there is a significant amount of money to go into the museum and winter gardens, and we continue to look at that. And we are actually in the middle of a report. And again, Councillor Dixon, I'm going to have to take umbrage. Councillor Wood speaks to me regularly about any heritage projects or cultural projects. You've never been in to see me. I would have a very happy had a discussion with you. Almost fitting into the criteria of a Liberal Democrat, Councillor Dixon. So, you all know at any point to come into the office and we'll discuss where we are with different things. We continue to invest in culture wherever we can. The one that I'm going to pick up on is the new development at Rotary. Whilst it's in the process at this moment in time, you know, the reality is 2.4 million with a limited funding stream is not going to build you a brand new state-of-the-art library in the city centre. It does need a lot of investment coming through, and we continue to work on those streams. We are in good connections with the Arts Council, with people that are regularly, and with people that HLF regularly. And again, as I said earlier on, there is huge support for the City of Sunderland, because the really significant impact of going for City of Culture as we raise the profile of Sunderland to such a level, we've got national organisations knocking at our door now rather than us having to knock at their doors. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Spedding.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Just following on from Councillor Green, well, I mean, clearly I was perplexed, if you want, about the reduction report contribution for capital, given that I don't think the three Liberals understand what the port does and what we need to get that message across. Interesting enough, at the weekend, I mean, we had the Beast from the East, and I mean, clearly we had a 5.5 metre stream tide overlapping and all the rest of it. And I was in the port on Friday where I saw lots of people doing lots of things to protect the asset down there. And then I was advised of a comment on social media from the Secretary of Louise Hyde Clems about the rear on the pier. She named the two local companies on a right-wing site, so there's them two local companies suffered from the attention of some crackerjacks online. Now, you know, I mean, that's the standard and the level of the stuff that we have to deal with, you know, in that. But specifically about the port. Since 2010, I mean, obviously, you know, the lady of the port was chair of the port. I subsumed into that role. But volumes of the port have increased from 408,000 tonnes to 835,000 tonnes. It's a 105% increase in business. This is against the backdrop of huge challenge in terms of the national demand for both port infrastructure and services, with changes in the energy market, the indigenous industries such as steelmaking, our ports market ever more competitive. We have a situation down there where the port has achieved an EZ status that will clearly bring investment into the port. We're looking at something like £14 million worth of investment from the private sector that's now established within the port. So, where's the damage going to be done in not investing in the port? Well, I only need to establish one item in that list to make a whole lot for. So what are we going to do? Are we going to turn a profitable port into a non-profitable port and put people out of work? That's what they're actually suggesting if you don't invest in the port. Absolutely silly, stupid kind of stuff they're putting down to attract headlines. Absolutely puerile is the word I would use in terms of that, because you've clearly got to defend the port. The port is an integral part of the city. We are 5 minutes from the North Sea. At this moment in time, there's a ship sitting off there waiting to come in to deliver a cargo that will be delivered into the weir for the benefit of the weir, for the benefit of the people of the City of Sunderland, and that's what's been happening since 2010. Now, I can't express that enough in terms of the importance of what the port does. I've said this on many occasions, I get myself in bother with arguments around what it is. However, the motto of the City of Sunderland port is, important to the weir, deliver to the time. And that's what we do. And that's probably the reason why Newcastle will probably put these up to that. You should reduce capital expenditure. What more can you say? Well, the port is licensed on Tyneside anyway, not really in Newcastle. However, that's not what they're saying. There's 20 acres of land across 2 sites of the port that have been approved for enterprise zones. And the port's management team, the city's business investment, are working hard to convert market invest in these sites into firm development. This invest is from a range of sectors, including the advanced manufacturing of automotive, which we've established the eye on, construction and offshore renewables. Alongside this will be the requirement to secure further land capacity to allow for future expansion opportunities, specifically along the commercial corridor adjacent to the rail line running into the port. The port is now a truly modal operation. It has road, rail and sea. Now, we don't want to invest in that. The people of Sunderland need to know what they're actually proposing, what the result of that inane, puerile kind of comment in this particular revenue budget will do to the City of Sunderland. It's immeasurable. And why wouldn't I want to stand here and defend that and blame on about it? Well, it's about jobs. And politics is about who gets what, when and how. It's the 5 area committees do what they do. They decide who gets what, when and how, for a small amount of money. Here we have a situation where these want to decide who gets what, when and how, on a large amount of money that will financially kill the port. I cannot support these amendments. They're absolutely ridiculous, and this one must surely fall. Thank you.
Councillor Hazel.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief as possible on this one. My key interest here is around...
Councillor Haswell, can I stop you? I think it's from my colleague this morning. I am Madam Mayor.
You are Madam Mayor.
The only reason that Councillor Hodgson gets away with calling me the Mayor of Sunderland is because of his religion. So I am Madam Mayor, and he addresses Madam Mayor. Thank you.
My apologies, Madam Mayor. That's just a good job I was doing. I will be brief as possible here. The most important line in this piece of budget for me is around the discretionary road resurfacing. Parts of this city which are absolutely top mark, residents are sick of driving over them, and the want to see some improvements. All the states in the city have been completely left off the reversing that for years. It is desperately done, and that's what residents are calling out for. And once again, our budget is responding to the calls of residents, which are to fix our roads.
Thank you, Councillor Haswell. Leader, would you have the right to reply? Leader, would you like to reply?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, again, I'll be brief in what I say, but I'd like to thank all of my colleagues who have stood up and presented this budget, because we believe, and I'm sure our opposition, certainly the second row, would believe that the majority of this budget is the right way to go for the citizens of this city. The software car park improvements will, we want to increase the occupancy in the software centre, we want to bring people into the city, that's what it's about. The port, well, Councillor Spreading has actually laid that out, and I remember many years being the vice chairman on the port to Councillor Paul Stewart. We never made a profit. The very year that Paul came, when Paul was leaving, we actually made a small profit. And that was a good few years ago. So well done, Paul. Well done, Paul. If we look at this vast amount of money, 3.376, we need a crane down there. We need to be sustainable down there. And if we look at the year 2010-11, there was a net operating loss of 1.2 million. But now, the port actually contributes greatly to the income of this council. And I'm told that the current budget for the port makes a net profit contribution of 500,000 a year, and that is a rising target to 630 from 2018-19. And last year, the port made a net surplus of £695,000. The tall ships, I think Councillor Kelly has explained that. This is about bringing visitors into the city, bringing more spend in the city, and I'm only a little bit sad that the football club decided not to continue with the bands, because I think the bands were a great attraction, but that of course is their decision. The council contribution to increasing the heritage, well, 500,000 council funding is required, and this will support a match funding bid which could leverage in 3 million of the heritage lottery funding. And if we're successful in the grant funding, the scheme will provide local studies and heritage centres in the Museum of Winter Gardens, as Councillor Kelly has already mentioned. Another great achievement for the city centre. Public realm, part of the redevelopment, again, we are looking to bring business into the city to increase our income of business rates. Nothing wrong with that, it's what we're here to do. Investment in the housing social budget to tackle the empty homes at 2 million. You should be aware that the regeneration in the Hetton Downs Council housing is making an investment of 3 million in the Sunderland Limited. And this is to provide affordable houses in the city, and I'm sure our members up there will know how long we've been on up there to try and solve that issue. And we're also actually considering options in relation to the 106 affordable homes contribution, which we hope will drive forward the affordable housing imbalance in the city. The discretionary road servicing, I've just been informed by my colleague, Councillor Morley, the very learned Councillor Morley in this area, that 25% of this budget is actually decided locally, which again brings in the area committee's sort of worth that we need here.
They're looking at each other in awe and wonder. They haven't got a clue what area committees do.
Probably haven't been to one. And I think the last item that they brought up, the new public libraries and the city community hub, well, actually, 2.49 might get you a sixth of a building, or an eighth of a building, maybe. When you look around, probably less. So, you know, and as Councillor Kelly said, the service has changed considerably. We have made the best of what we had to do and what we had left. And again, congratulations to the volunteers in our libraries for doing a great job. Madam Mayor, I hope this council and the members reject these proposals to the capital programme. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Can we now vote on the amendments?
Madam Mayor, there are 3 votes in favour, no abstentions, 55 votes against, and therefore the amendment is defeated.
Thank you. Can we now move on? So can I ask, does any members have a comment or a question on the substantive motion? If so, will you please indicate? Leader Cabinet, Secretary, do you wish to speak on this?
No, I'll follow that right, Madam Mayor.
So thank you, Leader. Now that brings us to the vote on the substantive motion before the Council, which must be recorded. Agreed to
Madam Mayor, there are 51 votes in favour, no abstentions, 7 votes against, and therefore the motion is carried.
Coalition is
Coalition is back.
And I declare the motion carried.